Welcome to another episode of Wrestling Tonight, live from the No Cell Studios in the Ace Tavern, Acefield Retro, and joined as always by the one bad Chad. Dude, we have so much information to break down. I feel like I shouldn't even do an intro.
I know, man. Can't wait to get into it. Tons of big stuff. The weekend it's Mania weekend, so the weekend was so big we added a fourth big story. So, guys, just at the top, if you want to support us in any way, especially Apple, Spotify, and right here on YouTube, go to theturnbuckletavern.com, like, subscribe, share, comment, all of that good stuff. We appreciate it. But Ace, like you said, there's so much stuff, dude. Do you want to just dive in?
Let's just dive right in, dude, because there's so much to break down.
Let's do it.
Stories. Story 1.
Story number 1, it's Gomez from the Addams family. I'm just joking. It's Vince McMahon is selling the company finally. WWE and UFC officially are forming a new company to close later this year. We got Vince McMahon commenting. He's doing media appearances. He went from being in complete hiding to now front and center. Everything broke down after WrestleMania kind of came to a close. We heard the rumors prior to night 2. This has been a very long time in the making. It's no surprise that they're selling. It's no surprise that Endeavor was involved. This was one of the players we thought would have a hand in their pot. Happy to say it's not going to be the Saudi, investment group that we all thought it would be. But man, we have a lot of information to break down, and just your initial thoughts on this.
Like you said, it was definitely someone that initially we thought was going to be in the running for it. And then Endeavor and Ari kind of came out, Ari Emanuel, they came out and said, hey, we don't want to take on any more debt. And this was on an investor call.
Right.
That they said this. And, you would think on an investor call, you're not going to lie to your shareholders, but this was a red herring, man. They were kind of like waving at us with one hand while they pickpocketed us with the other, because they definitely made this purchase. This is huge. This is much better than the Saudi deal that we thought may happen.
Yeah. And the fact that we're going to get the both of them together combining is different than what we originally thought. So there's still some details that need to be leaked out here, but they have to clear some hurdles. We don't know if all the regulations have been met, but apparently as a new company, we don't know the name of the conglomerate between WWE and UFC, but we do know they will be trading under the moniker TKO, the ticker symbol. So you'll see them being able to be publicly traded. You can invest in them. That is an absolute monster conglomerate. They take both their values equal to, we're talking billions of dollars. Now they hit double digit of billions of dollars if everything goes to plan. And we heard everybody talking about this. And you mentioned Ariel Emanuel, for the CEO of Endeavor. He had said, this is a rare opportunity to create a global live sports and entertainment pure play built for where the industry is headed. For decades, Vince and his team have demonstrated an incredible track record of innovation and shareholder value creation. And we're confident Endeavor can deliver significant additional value for shareholders by bringing UFC and WWE together. They've always been loosely connected. Obviously, combat sports fans, there is an overlap. But you and I spoke about this. Some UFC fans are not fans of WWE and vice versa. But bringing them together as this media conglomerate, it seems absolutely wild to me.
Well, I don't think wrestling fans who aren't into UFC and UFC fans that aren't into WWE may not realize how closely associated these two companies are. And this goes all the way back to the Fertittas. When the Fertittas, this was the owners that Endeavor bought the UFC from. When the Fertitta brothers bought this company for $2 million with Dana White, the business model that they had packaged the UFC at was completely taken from the business model that Vince McMahon created. This was with their contracts, everything. They really, there's been countless interviews where they've talked about Vince's business structure was what they looked to. And I find that's very interesting that UFC was pulled out of the human cockfight gutter that they were in by the Fertittas based on the business model of WWE. And here we are 20 plus years later with WWE selling to the man who purchased UFC and is kind of revitalizing UFC and pushing them into the mainstream. So it's very simpatico. I mean, it's very serendipitous with these two companies kind of coming back around together. I think there is potential for crossover. Like we hear Conor McGregor talking about things. Brock now, every time Brock's contract would come up, he would be pitting the UFC and the WWE against each other. Now, who's to say he can't go take a fight in the UFC? There are so many things to unpack here. It's really crazy. And before we dive any deeper, Ace, we do have they were on CNBC, they being Ari Emanuel and Vince McMahon, and they pretty much straight up asked Vince, why sell WWE now? And he had a response for them.
Many doubted we would ever see this day, that you would ever be willing to sell a controlling stake in your company.
Right.
You are the WWE, and the WWE is you. So why?
It's the right time. It's the right time to do the right thing. And it's the next evolution of WWE. I could probably do what Ari is right now with UFC. It'd take me 10 years. By the time I would grab those 10 years, he'd be 10 years ahead again. So it's like, it makes all the sense in the world for all these synergies that we have, to extract all of the value we can out of the marketplace.
The deal values UFC, you mentioned some numbers, $12 billion and WWE at $9.3 billion. That's a big number. Well, here's WWE's market cap is 6.5.
Here's what I would say to you is exactly why we did this, because I think we weren't getting the pure value. I don't think the WWE was getting the pure value. Combined, it's rarefied air, the two of us. And I think the analysts will be able to do it. It's good for the shareholders of WWE and for the shareholders of Endeavor. With our cost cuts, their new deals coming up, which is right now, and our cost savings that we think we can extract from the business right now and grow the business with all of our levers, whether it be international sales, domestic, sponsorship, gambling, all the things that we do. I think it's right. I would also say to you is, when I bought IMG, everybody said I overpaid. It was actually one of the cheapest deals in sports. For sure, when I bought the UFC, everybody was like at $4.2 billion. They were like crazy. We've tripled the EBITDA in that period of time. And now with this is going to be UFC 2.0.
Wow. So, I mean, a lot of business speak there. And he mentioned it right there, and it's a perfect segue to talk about this with the risk for Endeavor with WWE not doubling their money with their TV deal. A lot is on the line as far as 2024 goes. And we discussed potential suitors. Maybe they had a play in this where, we got NBC being involved. Maybe they want to own the place that the TV rights would be. But at some point, the TV rights have to plateau. And right now, we haven't reached that point. There's still uncertainty about what the future of media looks like. Is it streaming? Is it going to be a combination of both? And it's an unsteady ground. So right now, every streaming service that's out there, Peacock especially, that they're obviously very relevant in this space, they're losing money. And they can't afford this type of programming like WWE. They take a loss. So, I mean, he mentioned before, years ago when they bought UFC Endeavor, they said $4 billion was too much money. And they laughed at him and said it's a huge risk. And at this point, he's laughing at them.
Yeah.
But I mean, the main thing is, and I'll let you speak to it a little bit better because of UFC stuff, what we can expect, and it's going to be happening in the near future, especially probably end of year, big cuts, no loyalty for lifers. From what I understand, they moved away from guys that were helping build this from the ground up. Guys like Chuck Liddell, who had a huge say in it, was completely iced out because it made sense business-wise. And there's a lot of guys in the weeds, and we've seen a lot of them be edged out with the Nick Khan stuff, like the Gerald Briscoes and the old wrestling minds were pushed out. But I can imagine no one's job is safe. We heard Paul Levesque is going to be safe. He got an increase in pay and all of that, but nobody's safe. Like anyone you thought would be associated with WWE, it doesn't matter anymore.
No, I mean, for wrestling fans out there that weren't privy to what happened when the UFC was bought, I was in the weeds with that shit because I was so diehard. When they bought UFC, they being Endeavor, for $4 billion, they just said they're valued, I believe now they're valued around $12 billion. So they've turned a profit. But when they first came into that company, man, there were lifers. Like you said, Chuck Liddell, Matt Serra, there were veteran fighters who had retired who were pretty much given sweetheart deals, lifetime deals from the Fertitta brothers where they would work for the company forever. But those are just kind of the star people. We're talking about the matchmaker left. We're talking about the people behind the scenes that make the machine go. Endeavor came in and cleaned house. Like, they installed their own people, and Nick Khan's already spoke to, like, in the next couple weeks, they're putting a team together to come in and pretty much evaluate everyone's positions and see who needs to stay, who needs to go. So there's going to be major shakeups from a structural standpoint. And I'm basing that solely off of how Endeavor handled the UFC buy.
Yeah.
Now, I do think they're going to keep, Vince, obviously he's executive chairman. I think he's gaining a little bit of power back in this buyout. Like, it's what it seems. And all the things we're reading, seems like Vince is going to have a little more control now. And another thing, this might be going off the beaten path a little bit, but another thing to look at, man, if you were one of those people calling for Vince to get taken down by all of the allegations that were against him, Endeavor protects their people. Even though they're a publicly traded company, they do not disclose all of their details. And the contract with Dana White, I mean, he was caught on videotape slapping his wife. Nothing was ever said. Endeavor never issued an apology. Endeavor never made Dana White take time off. I mean, it was like they stuck their head down in the sand, kept it moving, and waited for it to blow over. And so I think they're going to treat Vince the same way. They're going to protect him at all costs. And before we dive deeper into some of this stuff, Ace, I do have a little clip of them talking about Vince's legacy and those allegations of the last year and how all of that plays into this.
Given where you took this company, what's happened in the last year, the regrets you may have as a result of all that, and how you think your legacy will and your story will be told.
Well, let me just say that I've made mistakes, obviously, both personally and professionally through my 50-year career. I've owned up to every single one of them and then moved on. I'm not sure, the legacy stuff, I'm not going to write it. So I don't know. I want to say it's someone who had an extraordinary amount of fun, great passion for what they did, and wound up doing the biggest deal he's ever done in his life.
What about that deal? People thought that was rather peculiar.
Which deal?
About getting the payout if the company gets sold, and then also owning the rights to your intellectual property so that you can tell your story if you want to.
It is what it is.
But let me just say my opinion, because we talked about this. I think that's fair. It is his legacy. He's the one, we're coming together. He's the one that should control his legacy. It shouldn't be controlled by somebody else. And that's actually fair. A legacy, he's built 50 years. It shouldn't be held by anybody else. It should be held by him. That's the right thing to do.
So it sounds like Ari's going to stand behind Vince at all costs.
Yeah, definitely. It sounds that way. And I can't help. And you're the biggest movie buff I know. This looks like a dystopian future where Vince is wearing a mustache. Just look like time has passed with the dyed hair. And this is a moment we never thought we would see. And there's going to be a lot of change. And I think with Vince keeping him at the helm, all bets are off as far as what he would need to do to be removed. Because at this point, it seems like the only way out is through death. Like, he's going to be involved in this. And you mentioned Endeavor, money speaks volumes. And now he's even more powerful because he's a part of a conglomerate that is double as financially successful. So Endeavor is going to look past a lot of the misgivings that are being thrown around, and he paid everybody off. It seems like the book is closed on that investigation. So Vince lives like Teflon Don to fight another day. But one of the conversations as far as mindset goes, and we talk about big cuts and loyalty, but a lot of what Endeavor has done, it's about who can make us money now.
Yep.
We've seen that shift with Nick Khan and Triple H, and different mindset of the people in the back to move towards D1 athletes from college, NCAA guys, the Gable Stevensons, and these like projects that have come to pass. And for me, looking from the outside, how patient with someone that is paying a lot of money for a product are they going to be to wait for these guys to be ready? Like a Gable Stevenson, these projects, they're going to go up and down NXT and look at it and say, are you going to be making us money in the next 12 months? If not, see you later. And I think that may change in a better way to build around who's main eventing WrestleMania. It's Kevin Owens, it's Sami Zayn, it's Cody Rhodes. It's guys that are lifers in wrestling, not so much independent wrestling, but guys who came up through the business. And I think that could really change the way new stars are made, because I don't think they're going to have the patience to be like, hey, let's let this guy prosper for a bit in NXT. We'll give him some seasoning. No, they want those Roman Reigns immediately. They want those guys. They're not going to wait around. This isn't the patience of saying, I see something in them. It's moving towards a mindset that is not as much feel anymore. It's about, okay, let's squeeze as much money out of these guys. And NXT, look at those. Is Carmelo Hayes or is Braun Breaker, are they going to be making money on the main roster? You know, that's something they're going to be assessing. And Vince may not have as much say towards that. It may just come up from the top.
Oh, big time, man. They're going to be watching everything, because that's how they handled the UFC. In the beginning, you know, the people they were locking up and wanting to keep were the Conor McGregors, the John Jones, the proven commodities that bring eyes and bring pay-per-view buys. Because, you know, it's big into pay-per-view, which is something I want to mention as well. But the guys, when they came in and bought UFC, there were massive cuts on those fighters, man. Like, a lot of the up-and-comers or the mid-carders who showed promise, their contracts, there was increases when contract negotiations would come up. But when you look at the amount of money that Endeavor was then pulling in, the fighter themselves was maybe seeing more zeros on their check, but it wasn't corresponding to the massive amount of money they were making that they weren't making before from a company perspective. So on the individual level, the fighter was making more money, but when you look at how much more money the company was now pulling in from a percentage level, they weren't getting a bigger cut of the pie. They were actually making less. But talking about pay-per-views, man, I think that is something to really look out for, because there had been reports that Nick Khan, I think, had said something about they weren't against a new deal reintroducing the pay-per-view model. I truly believe, Ari, that is where their bread is buttered in the UFC. They've kind of recently kind of dove into the gambling market, which is bringing in a whole other source of revenue, but their bread and butter is pay-per-view. And I think that's something that Vince has went away from. If they were still rolling hard with the network and trying to make that a commodity, I would maybe pause at that. But the fact that they were just bought out to Peacock, I would not be shocked if they tried to leverage a situation where they still had the money coming in for a Peacock deal, and they would give like little one-off PLEs on Peacock, but the big shows like the Big Four, Mania, Rumble, SummerSlam, I really think we're going to see those go back to pay-per-view eventually. I want to see how the fans react to that, because if you're just I don't know if they can do the UFC market, because UFC now charges $79.99 for pay-per-views. In the year of 2022, they had 13 pay-per-views. So
Wow.
a wrestling fan's going to be willing to shell out $80 12 times a year.
Not after having everybody have the luxury of streaming in. And like, speaking of my brother, who's a lapsed wrestling fan, hasn't watched WrestleMania because he had access to Peacock. Those people may not tune in, but I guess you have to crunch numbers, and that's what this team is going to do to figure out what is the most fiscally responsible thing on their end. And the thing is, too, we mentioned the streaming deal. Nothing is set in stone for the future, and there's always negotiations and contracts quickly approaching. And there was obviously a conversation with Nick Khan, and they were talking to him on Axios, an interview on Monday, talking about a WWE and UFC streaming deal after the current agreements are done. Right now, WWE's current streaming deal that we're talking about is Peacock on NBC Universal. That expires end of 2026. UFC has the deal with ESPN Plus, where they have the prelim fights and they have some library that's on there, expires in 2025. And, Nick Khan, who's a savvy businessman, he pivoted and said, let's see what NBC Universal has to say about that before we talk. They've been really good to us. And pretty much putting their feet to the fire. You said you want to keep us on your platform. We are the reason pretty much Peacock is anywhere close to being profitable. It's not profitable at this point, but it's close, is because of the WWE content. Think about how many eyes are brought there.
Yep.
And we'll talk about WrestleMania and the eyes that were on the product. It seems like they're breaking records over time for the company and financially. So right now, all the leverage is in their court. And you mentioned shifting towards getting these guys more money. And yeah, they're going to be paid more money. Wrestlers are going to be able to offer any wrestler on the free agent market whatever they want. But similar to the NFL, it's not going to be an equal ratio to what's coming in.
Right.
The people that are going to be making money are the guys at the top, and the wrestlers are losing more leverage, whether they know it or not right now.
And I also think it's going to be a situation where they're not going to be shelling out money to keep everybody. Like, we're going to see major people get cut. If you're not someone bringing something to the table based off of how they handled the UFC, Endeavor will remove you. There will be cuts. The pay-per-view thing is very interesting. I think that is something to think about. I think Endeavor with UFC is known to double dip because they have their own streaming service, which is UFC Fight Pass, but then they also have a deal with ESPN Plus. So they've got multiple streaming services for UFC, and I believe through ESPN Plus is where you purchase the pay-per-views. So like they're Endeavor are geniuses about milking the consumer at every point they can. And I think they are going to be maneuvering WWE into a position where they're going to be taking more money from your pockets than you're used to. Now, we keep talking about WWE and UFC and all of this stuff. The man over at UFC, the figurehead, essentially the Vince McMahon of the UFC, he had a comment on the purchase, the partnership, and Dana White said this company has been, talking about WWE, this company has been on fire for the last 7 years, and now that we will be adding, he was talking about UFC, this company has been on fire for the last 7 years, and now that we will be adding WWE to the portfolio, I'm excited to take this to another level. Vince is a savage in the wrestling space. Ari is a beast at what he does. And then add what we at UFC bring to the table. And there is no limit to what this company can accomplish in the next few years. Dude, it's going to be very interesting to see personalities like Ari, who the character Ari from Entourage is based off Ari Emanuel.
Right.
Just a junkyard dog. And then you have Dana White and Vince McMahon. These are three complete alpha males, titans of industry coming together. It's either going to go really, really well, or things could happen like they typically do with these type of personalities. But I think we're going to see a lot of monetary gains from these guys. And I think they're going to be milking us fans for everything they can.
Yeah, and Vince was talking about that on the interview. He had so much more to say on that interview where he had that crazy mustache. But they talked about the combination of being $21+ billion combined as far as net worth goes. And that might be an overestimation, but it can't be far off, especially with what WWE sold for and what UFC is estimated at this point. And adding them together, it's a portfolio beyond belief. And for you to offer that to streaming rights and offer that to a TV network, they've just gained so much leverage. Where if you go back to the days where WWE was bounced around USA and TNN and they couldn't figure out a place and have a home, USA has been their main home, but there was a time and place where they were not as attractive to suitors. And at this point, WWE is putting themselves in the same playing field as a UFC and also as like the NFL. They don't understand this. Like, NFL does astronomical numbers that a lot of people can't even touch. And WWE really can't touch that on a weekly basis. But by combining themselves with UFC, the two of them can probably match what the NFL does as far as value. And the main value of right now in the market, and that could change going forward, but what we're seeing as live programming, content for the sake of content, has been absolutely, it's what everyone's chasing. And the fact that WWE continues to make live content on Mondays, on Fridays, they have these huge pay-per-views. It's not so much about the quality. And we've seen that with UFC. I mean, you can't, obviously the fights are the fights. Like, that's the other thing that's different is the fight can go all rounds and have be this push come to shove, or it can end in a knockout. That's the beauty of a UFC pay-per-view. And $70, it's $70.
Yep.
But with WWE, maybe that's the approach as well, where they're going to have a way to drag you in for the big events. You mentioned the 4 pay-per-views, and then the gateway drug would be these prelim events, or maybe you put half the card on the streaming service and you have to pay extra amount of money for the
That's
main
what
event.
UFC does. They have their undercard that you can watch for free to kind of hook you in to buy the main pay-per-view. So,
and people would have bought Cody Roman last night. I guarantee,
absolutely.
because that's what you watch night 2 for. And if you pay whatever, the $4.99 or $9.99 or whatever it costs for Peacock for anybody with the ads and stuff, you pay $4.99 is the lower end. So if you're paying that, you're going to sit there and be like, all right, going to bed. I'm not going to watch Cody Roman. No, of course you're going to pay for it.
It's going to be very interesting too, man, to see, because essentially they've bought WWE. They have UFC. They're combining them under a parent company.
Yes.
That parent company will be on the stock market. So people who own stock in WWE, I'm guessing, will have to sell off what they have and then rebuy under this new parent company, because there's not going to be a WWE stock, a UFC stock. It's going to be both of these companies hitting Wall Street, hitting the NASDAQ under one company. So to see how all of that shakes out from a numbers perspective is going to be interesting.
Yeah, honestly, I don't even know what I thought. I mean, the fact that they'll be trading together, you can't trade the 3 of them at the same time. And I don't know, I'm not as well versed in the stock market world, but I guess it's possible to have a bigger parent company and have the smaller companies be traded. But what would be the point of that? You want your investors to get the whole portfolio, not just a piece of it.
Exactly. You would want to be buying into the whole shooting match. But the one thing before we move on from this, unless you have more, Ace, that I think is the big elephant in the room from a wrestling fan perspective is, okay, Vince sells this. They've given him the executive chairman. All signs kind of lead to him having a little bit more power again. And Ari has came out in interviews and said he is going to have absolutely nothing to do with creative. He's strictly the business end of it. But on that CNBC interview, they did ask Vince if he's going to be involved in creative.
On the creative side, Vince, do you plan to be as involved as you have in the past on the creative side?
Yes and no. On a higher level, yes. In the weeds, which I always love to get in the weeds in the past, no, can't do that.
Dude, this brings me back to the quote. I think Sean Ross Sapp posted it, but they brought back when Heyman and Bischoff were brought in for like a day to take over all creative. And he actually used the said, I'm not going to be in the weeds anymore. What did we see? He's in the weeds. So I honestly, you'd be naive to believe that he didn't have a say in that finish last night. It had Vince McMahon's fingerprints all over it. It was a Vince finish through and through. Well, of course, we'll talk about WrestleMania, but I have to say that had to be a last minute decision. And Vince was like, you know what? I got a great idea. Let's do all the interference. It was a tale as old as time. That's a Vince McMahon finish if I ever did see one.
Yeah, that ending was pretty. We'll get into it when we talk Mania, but
just before we move on from this, I just want to talk about the Saudi thing, because Ariel Emanuel was talking about in the past, he didn't want to do business with Saudi. And when he took over Endeavor, he bought out their share. So we now have the Saudi deal that's up until 2027. They have to do, I think, 2 or 3 shows a year in Saudi Arabia. So of course we have King and Queen of the Ring coming up next, but Crown Jewel, all those things, maybe the greatest Royal Rumble. They entered this agreement back in 2018, obviously under a different regime. What happens after 2027? You want to talk about maximizing profit. It's easy to look at Saudi Arabia and then you just keep poking that cash cow and coins keep popping out because people are, it's never ending. $50 million to $55 million are gross per these events. So they're willing to pay. Is Emmanuel willing to look the other way for not wanting to do business with Saudi in the past? I mean, he pretty much cut them out of the UFC picture. What are your thoughts on this? I personally see them as going away past 2027.
Yeah, I think they'll move away. I think, UFC had ties to Abu Dhabi. They were doing shows over there. I think the Crown Prince over there had...
Was it the Fight Island stuff during COVID, right?
Yeah, and at one point, I believe they owned maybe a 5 or 6% stake in the company, and They moved away from that, I believe, when Endeavor took over. So, I mean, it's going to be hard to turn down big money. I think
Especially when you're putting so much up, like because they may be
100%.
stand to lose money in the upcoming fiscal year. So they're like, oh, that's an easy, couple $1 million we put in our pockets.
So if it's up in 2027, that gives us 4-5 years. If it runs over, like 4 or 5 years of them seeing how this recoup of the 9.3 billion they're dropping on this thing. If they have kind of things in place where they see, hey, there's growth here. Maybe we're not making as much as we want to right now, but we're seeing growth. I think they would stay away from Saudi. But because Saudi, man, it's a black eye. Golf is dealing with it right now with Live Golf. I mean, the PGA is there are PGA tournament professional golfers that people love that are now banned from the PGA because they're working for Live Golf as well. So I think there is a stigma with doing business with them. And Ari seems like somebody, for the most part, he does want to keep his nose clean because that's good business. It opens more business doors when you don't have those black eyes,
But when you're dealing with, obviously, he's willing to look past the other way for Dana White slapping his wife and Vince McMahon still at the figurehead.
100%. There's that.
So who could say, I mean, especially when, again, you're putting up all this amount of money to buy WWE. I think the estimated number, we'll get the official, is it's north of $9 billion at this point. So you have to look at any way to make your money. We talk about budget cuts, but why would you throw away an existing deal that makes a lot of money outside of just moral reasons? And if you're able to look past some other things with morality in place, then I don't know. The thing is, like I said, you keep poking that Saudi bank and coins pop out. So it's like a Mario box. Keep popping the coins out, popping the coins out. So,
the most interesting thing about all of this to me is going to be the infrastructure in the coming months. The money is going to be fun to follow in the coming years, but that's a long-term 3-5 year type of story to follow. As it's kind of how it was with the UFC when they purchased them, but the more recent story that we're going to really be able to track is the infrastructure changes. Who goes, who gets hired in, who gains power, who loses power, talent.
right.
There's going to be more money for certain talent. Like Roman Reigns, he's going to be living large, but not everybody's Roman Reigns. Not everybody's Conor McGregor. Those mid to low card guys have got to be thinking like, man, how are they going to look at me?
Yeah. And if you look at the metrics and follow the merchandise and the house show attendance and the live gates, everything is sort of trending towards another boom period. And I don't think we'll ever see the 90s again, the late 90s, let's just say, for the Attitude Era and the Monday Night Wars. But they're approaching a level we haven't seen for pro wrestling. And I know it's hard because we live in this bubble of talking pro wrestling every single day here on this, at Turnbuckle Tavern. Make sure you guys follow us. But wrestling is approaching a different level where they may be getting in at the right time, where maybe $9 billion, we're going to look at this in the long run as being a steal. And I know that's crazy, but with inflation and going 10 years from now, I mean, how long ago was the UFC deal done at this point? Close to 11 years, something like that.
Yeah. I think it was like 2010, 2011, somewhere
so you
there.
Look at a decade and change in the future for WWE. $9 billion may be a steal for what they're offering consumers. And yeah, this is, in order to make money, you have to spend money. And I think nobody knows that better than, the Endeavor team, because they have put their money where their mouth is. They're willing to expand their portfolio at risk of losing money. And there is a lot of risk for this, but the benefits and what they could accomplish with this, it could be game changing for the market. We're not just talking pro wrestling. We're talking about entertainment.
And not to be a negative Nancy, because I think there is a lot of good things that could come out of this. But for the fans who think WWE is too corporate now, buckle up. That's all I got to say. You're going to see it get a lot more corporate. When the UFC was running their own shit, fighters could make money off their advertisers and all of that. And then, Endeavor comes in and does a uniform deal with Reebok. All of those sponsorships that fighters had on their shorts, they went away. That source of income for fighters went away. And they had this very low ball deal with Reebok and it made everyone kind of uniform, and you lost the personalities of the fighters. I'm not going to say they're going to come in and do that with the wrestlers, but that's just an example of they are going to clean this up, button it up, make it way more corporate. And Ari is also the guy responsible for a lot of Hollywood deals. He was a big time player in the Hollywood industry. Like, I'm really interested to see how their presentation, like from a, what can they get away with? I think it's going to be a little more buttoned up than even it is now. And I think it's very corporate right now, but you're going to see it button up even more.
Yeah, and I hope you all like the Cinnamon Toast Crunch on your, you know, you got a blood feud in the ring between father and son. We got Cinnamon Toast Crunch leading us in and Intuit taxes and stuff. So we're gonna get more of that shit. They're gonna make money and they're gonna squeeze it out. And you know what? WCW's ahead of the game with the Slim Jim on the mat. So we're gonna get more and more of this. But I mean, stay tuned. We're gonna be talking about this as time goes on. And there's a level of relief on my end. I'm gonna be honest with you, when I saw this news come through, where it's almost like the devil we know, you know, at this point, where we know exactly what could come of this. We can look at the UFC deal as a precursor and read the tea leaves, as we like to say here, about what could come in the future. And for
here's
me,
the positive thing, man, not to cut you off, Ace, but here's the positive thing to take from this.
Yeah.
Like you said, the devil we know, they didn't run UFC into the ground.
Right.
They didn't get rid of Dana White. So the fear of like, man, they're going to get rid of Triple H. They're going to boot Vince. Who's going to be running creative? I don't think that's a fear we should have. Those guys are safe. Ari is smart enough to know he needs those guys to keep the boat running, keep the boat afloat. But so that is a positive. Like you said, devil we know, they've made UFC into a big success. I would say, back to the corporate thing, the only thing I think they kind of soured me a little bit on UFC is oversaturation. There became so many events, it was almost hard to follow.
And we're almost getting that now at this point. Like I said, content for the sake of content. It's live programming just to put it on. An extra hour Raw, they could easily cut that. Last night, they could have cut an hour off of the Peacock, you know, obviously the stream. We didn't need all the video packages and the recaps. But like I said, being able to say, we have endless hours of content, not to mention our libraries. It's endless. But having a home for WWE to live well past we are gone from this earth. Because for me, you know, as much as we like to rag on WWE and hate on it when it's bad, but it's the start of my fandom. And I'm glad to see that future generations will get to enjoy it, hopefully, that they're going to continue to be in good hands, because up until now, the future was uncertain, because past Vince, we didn't have a plan for what the future looked like. There was no fallout of, with Vince dies, who's taking control. And I'm glad that there's at least a roadmap to bring us to WrestleMania 80, WrestleMania 100, when we're no longer here enjoying the product, but our kids and grandkids can do the same.
Absolutely. If you're wrapped up, Ace, do you want to, instead of giving back-to-back WWE, you want to break it up with some Supercard, go story 3 and then go back to 2?
I agree. And we got a special guest to join us for this, and I think it's very appropriate to bring him in for it.
Yeah, let's go story 3. We'll hit you with story number 2 after we get some Ring of Honor talk in.
Big Story 3.
All right, we got Ring of Honor, Supercard of Honor, and this was the official start to a lot of wrestling weekends for everybody. I started with my GCW collective on a Thursday night, but for the most part, for the most of the fans, this is the first show that really was the appetizer and might have been the best show of the weekend. You can make the argument Ring of Honor crushed it yet again. Nonstop action from the first bell. And we have Colton from Honor Society joining us to talk about it. What's up, Colton?
Oh, hold on. There we go. There's Colton.
Hey, what's up, fellas?
What's going on, man? I'm trying to find the overlay, so give me a second.
You're all good, brother. No worries.
But yeah, Colton, so while this is up here, just give us your initial thoughts on the beginning of Ring of Honor. And obviously, we talk about this every Thursday, 10 p.m. You guys can check us out on YouTube exclusive. But you and I were very happy with how everything played out as far as the build. Do you think this lived up to your expectations?
It certainly did, man. I think you hit the nail on the head. I think you could easily argue that this was the card of the weekend. Like for me, I mean, even though I enjoyed both WrestleMania night 1 and 2 more than I thought I was going to, Supercard stole the weekend for me, man. I thought it was great. I think you and I and probably a whole lot of other wrestling fans were pretty surprised with some of the finishes. And you and I know that we came on here a couple of weeks ago and did our picks, and I'm pretty sure I only had one that was right. But definitely some surprise finishes. But man, nonetheless, a fantastic show from top to bottom, I thought.
Yeah, and we talked about the prelims for the 0 hour. You guys are missing out if you're not checking that. We got some matches, and obviously we're not going to cover them as in-depth as the other matches, but we had Jeff Cobb taking on Tracy Williams again in the win. Takeshita defeated Willie Mack, and in my opinion, that should have been on the main card. What a great match. Widow Nightingale defeated Miranda Elise, and then Stu Grayson took on Slim J, and he beat him down for us because, fuck the Trustbusters. So good amount of wrestling on the pre-show. But lead us in with that opening match. You and I said the ladder match probably been a good precursor and a nice little an appetite palate cleanser. But goddamn, the AAA mega title match, El Hijo del Vikingo versus Commander. And as I mentioned, this is the first official out of the main shows of the weekend. And holy shit, they were chasing this one.
Dude, yeah, this match did not disappoint. It was, I mean, I had nothing but high hopes for it, but man, what a way to come out. I like you said, I think that we both thought that the ladder match was going to open up, but I mean, this was a dream matchup, man. Real quick though, going back to the pre-show, one thing that I wanted to mention that I did not expect was we got to see the Righteous come out there at the end of Stu Grayson's match, which is, I'm a huge fan of the Righteous, man. Really excited to see them. We thought about, we'd heard rumors of them being backstage at WWE shows, so I'm surprised that deal fell through, but also very happy because I love having them in the Ring of Honor. I think it's the perfect place for them. And also, I think that bodes well for us seeing a potential feud with them in Dark Order and seeing some more Dark Order in ROH, which I think is the perfect place for Dark Order to land. But I digress. Yeah, the first match, Vikingo, El Hijo del Vikingo versus Commander. Man, I mean, this thing was fantastic. The crowd was so hot before they even touched, man. Like, it was just an incredible match from start to finish. Man, that after hitting that destroyer, Vikingo goes for the 630 onto the table on a Commander, and somehow that table didn't break, which I was still an incredible spot, man. I was just more worried about Commander's insides when that table didn't buckle. I was like, holy shit, I hope brother doesn't have a hernia from that. Like, I know that's so much worse on you when the table doesn't buckle. Your body has to absorb all of that impact. But yeah, man, this was a really good one. Also, getting to hear Nigel McGuinness on the call was a real treat that I was not expecting. So I know Chad in the group text, you were like so stoked when Nigel came out. I thought he added a lot to the whole night, but especially this match in particular.
Dude, as soon as they released him from NXT UK,
perfect.
As soon as it happened, in the back of my mind, I'm like, Tony Khan's going to scoop that dude up. He's going to scoop him up, and I love him on NXT commentary, man. So to see him, I hope he becomes the third. I'm a 2-man booth kind of guy, but if you add him to the team they have, man, that's a killer commentary squad.
Yeah, it is, man. I usually that's the thing that I like the most is that about Ring of Honor is I love a 2-man call. I love Caprice Coleman, and I love Ian Riccaboni. But yeah, if I had to pick a third man, that was perfect.
He brings prestige to the booth too. You know what I mean? Like Nigel McGuinness is ROH through and through, and what he accomplished in the ring can't be dismissed. He's one of those guys. Like, there's a nice flair. Obviously Coleman and Riccaboni have been there for big moments as announcers, but there's something to be said about having a guy in the ring. He also has good announcing chops too, so it's the perfect fit to tell the story in the ring. And there's a lot of the guys on this roster that he went to war with, so it's nice to get his perspective. It was great to hear him on the call,
dude. For like, let's be honest, if you're not a Ring of Honor like aficionado and don't know the history, like, people need to realize Nigel McGuinness is just as heralded and respected and beloved in the Ring of Honor pantheon as a Samoa Joe, a Daniel Bryan, or Bryan Danielson, a CM Punk. Nigel McGuinness was in those early days putting on absolute killer matches with these guys. So like, I think current fans who didn't watch the product then or didn't kind of brush up on the history of it, they probably see him as, oh, it's the NXT guy. Dude, this guy is a bona fide Ring of Honor legend. I think this is awesome to have him there.
Yeah, and injury cut his career short. You guys can check out on Peacock. They have a special where they interviewed him and they showed the highlights of his career. And yes, there's a big piece of that. We're like, oh, like Nigel McGuinness is not just a voice there from NXT UK. He is a guy who was absolutely, it's huge to collect guys you can for ROH and the legacy sake, have these guys in-house to not only also be a part of the call, but maybe talk to some of those guys in the back about their matches and construct them and be a voice that they can listen to.
Yeah, and I like how he carried a little bit of that flair with him throughout the call in the evening. Like he definitely took digs at Danielson throughout, like referencing their previous feud, which adds a level of color to the commentary that I think we've definitely been missing. So I really enjoyed it. But yeah, man, going back to this Commander Vikingo match, I mean, killer finish. Vikingo gets the win with a 630. I loved the exchange that these guys had in the ring at the end of the match. Like, I mean, it was not only was the code of honor adhered to, but these guys, the embrace. I mean, Commander like pretty much jumped up and wrapped Vikingo with his legs. Like you could tell these are two young dudes that are so excited to be doing what they are doing, where they're doing it, and just really, really appreciated seeing that level of love between those guys, and just being like, holy shit! You could tell, like, they're saying to each other, like, man, we fucking made it. Like we're here.
You know what's crazy? Crazy too, because I was listening to Meltzer talk about the Supercard of Honor show, and obviously everyone will talk about more of the show. But he was talking about just a few years back, Dragon Lee, Metalik were the two guys that everyone circled in AAA and the Mexican area wrestling, saying this is the future of Lucha Libre. And he used the word, Meltzer said, these guys now look tame to what Commander and Vikingo can do on a weekly basis and a nightly basis. And they look like they're from a different planet. They're operating on a different speed. It feels like you're watching a sped up tape. And this is not just, I mean, even when you go back and watch Rey Mysterio, Psychosis, Juventud Guerrera matches, they are reinventing what Lucha Libre is. And if injury aside, if these two guys are healthy the remainder of their career, you could say a guy like Vikingo could be a world champion in a company like WWE, like AEW in the future. And look at the career path of Rey Mysterio. Not to go on a full, this may be a good debate question. 10 years from his debut, he won the title in Chicago. Do we see Vikingo 10 years from now, if he's healthy, winning a world title in WWE? I wouldn't write it off, dude, because the stuff that he's doing, it has casual audience written all over to light them on fire.
Yeah, the future of Lucha Libre is definitely in good hands with these two guys. And yeah, I mean, I don't even think I wouldn't even put it past it to not take 10 years to see him in a major promotion with a world heavyweight belt, man.
But those bumps, man, you mentioned the 630, that he takes a spot where he misses the 630 every match, lands on the top of his shoulders. That can't be good for your body and longevity, but I don't know, but maybe he's like Darby Allin. He's like
not here for a long time. He's here for a good time, man.
Like Darby Allin. That's the
exactly.
From the same cloth.
Well, I hope, he's 25 now. Like those bumps are going to hurt a little bit worse every year that he gets older. So we can figure out a way to not miss that one going forward. But yeah, I mean, I personally, I love this match. I thought it was even though it was not the way I thought the card was going to open, thought it was a great way to open the card. And then, the next match surprised me a little bit too. We had the 6-man titles, the Embassy, Brian Cage and Gates of Agony versus the team of Metalik, AR Fox, and Blake Christian. I'd gone back and forth on this. I know we had Ace on Honor Society that when I first heard about this match, there's no way that the Embassy's losing. But then, we hear all these rumblings that Brian Cage is on his way out. He's on a handshake deal. I shot you a text right after the finish. Embassy wins it. I guess Brian Cage is a handshake deal kind of guy. Doesn't look like he's going anywhere. At least I really hope not, because if he's going to leave after them retaining the titles, I could see that getting muddy pretty quick. But I mean, they do have weekly TV now. They could take the belts off of them. Either way, though, I did really enjoy this match. Riccaboni kept saying that he thought that this match was going to be kind of the sleeper, that everybody was kind of writing this off as being the let me up match on the card, and it was a good match, man. I mean, I don't think there's we've been calling on Honor Society, we've been calling the team of Metalik and Blake Christian and AR Fox the hodgepodge, just because they're really not. There's nothing binding them together. They're just three badass dudes that are individually great that we just happen to put together.
But I thought they meshed really well, man. They did not look like a hodgepodge in this match. They looked like they've been studying tape. They have been, they've been watching the Embassy's matches. They've been strategizing and talking to each other. They were very, very cohesive, I thought, and which made me feel really good about, especially if we're going to try to keep the 6-man division alive in Ring of Honor, that, maybe keeping these guys together as a team is a good thing. But I do, especially if we are planning on keeping the 6-man together and not, a merger between the trios titles with AEW, I think it was definitely the right call to have Embassy go over here, because there's a lot more meat on the bone with them, man. They're just, 3 brick shit houses, dude. They are just a force to be reckoned with. And I enjoyed it. What'd you guys think?
I thought the big story of this match was Cage. Like going in, that's what I love. Everyone involved. Big fan of Metalik, big fan of Blake Christian. On one hand, I was like, there's no way they put these titles on just a random group of guys. Yep. On the other hand, I'm with you with the Cage situation, the contract situation, the handshake deal. So this match to me was kind of like looking for clues of what Cage is going to do. Maybe this was kind of a sign of good faith from Tony Khan. Like, hey man, you're doing right by me. You're staying around. You're following through on the story with the handshake deal. You're not under contract. You can leave at any time. I'm going to let you win this. And
I agree.
We'll see where it goes.
The match was just solid. There was nothing you can poke holes in. It told a good story. Obviously the Embassy are coming in as the powerhouses, and this team of the 3, they've been teaming for about 3 weeks. They're relative unknowns as far as being a 6-man tandem. They had the unenviable task of trying to match the opener too, but I think this is the perfect match to put there because, they go out there and they do their stuff, and it was a good cleanser from what was that first match, because there was a standing ovation following that match, and these guys had to come out through the curtain and put on a show. And I thought they did a good job for what they did. They had the crowd reacting, and they had them for the amount of time that it was. I think it was very well done. I'm happy the Embassy won, because I don't want the titles being put on a random team.
Yeah, I thought what an act to follow, man. Like you said, there was not a person. If you were physically able to stand, you were on your feet after that opener. And then, I thought the guys they did a good job, man. They it was solid. We give props to them every week on Honor Society about how just well paced the show seems for Ring of Honor. And I didn't think this card disappointed either. It's just that the flow is very good. I didn't think there was a single point in the card where I was like, oh man, this is kind of lagging. This is kind of low energy. It's just seamless.
Well, that's where the Tony Khan regime blows WWE out of the water. Yeah. Is the pacing of their pay-per-views. It's not even a comparison. Not to say ROH was a better show. WrestleMania was a great show, but as far as just the way a show is paced, nobody does it better than Tony Khan.
Yeah, no warm up in the bullpen at all. It just feels like there's a very all right, no time to breathe. And it feels like a super indie show. And even more so than the AEW shows, these AEW pay-per-views really, there's no rest. It's like go, 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 go. And it's a lot of fun. And 3 hours fly by when you're watching it on pay-per-view.
Yeah, 3 hours. I couldn't believe that this was a 3-hour show by the time we got to the moving on, man. Next match, we had the women's title. So Athena versus Yuka Sakazaki. Man, I know that we were kind of bitching last week about how we thought the new pure title and the new heavyweight title were a little bit underwhelming looking. I love this new women's belt, man. It is definitely, and we'll get to the tag belts later too. I'm in love with those as well. But this new women's belt it's awesome. I thought I love the design. I liked the black inlay in the ROH text. I thought it looked really good, man. This is our first time seeing Yuka in the new era of Ring of Honor. This was a good match. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a good showcase for both. I don't think it was a secret to anybody that Athena her title reigns still got a lot left. I really enjoyed at the finish. Athena stared into the hard cam as the ref went for the count, and her eyes are just
she's killing it,
fucking
man.
Crazy, man.
She's killing this character work. I think she's not getting enough credit for shifting from Ember Moon into what she was doing in AEW when she debuted to what she's doing right now. I feel like she's growing leaps and bounds.
And I don't think this match was as good as like her other title defenses, but that's just speaking to the volume of what she's been able to bring to the table. And it was lacking some intensity. And I think it wasn't on Athena's part. I think it was on Sakazaki's part. I don't think she was matching that intensity we thought we would get from Yuka Sakazaki that we would get in her Japanese matches. And I mean, it started to get a little bit going, but we didn't see the viciousness side of Yuka that we usually see. And Athena on the other end, like you mentioned, she is so compelling to me because of how that mean streak that all started with that AEW dark thing, whether it was a shooter or work or whatever, they're leaning into it. And
Yeah,
she's
the Jody
thriving
Threat
here.
match where she beat the shit out of her.
And
Yeah,
she's thriving as that heel. She fits so perfectly because she was lost in the shuffle in AEW program. And I think she's perfectly fit to rule this AEW, I mean, the Ring of Honor women's division for a while. I don't think, and the women's, we talk about every week on our side, the women's division has potential to be stacked in ROH.
Yeah,
There's a lot of good faces.
Trisha
Yeah.
Dora is looking great. And just to talk about, potential people in the division and, the match with Athena and Yuka was great. But the stuff that's compelling about this match is the stuff we did not see on our televisions, but it hit the internet and everyone was posting videos. So at the show, at first it was reported she was in the back. Formerly Naomi of WWE, Trinity Fatu was in the back, but come to find out she wasn't just in the back. She was front row for this title match. I have a clip here. Apologies to the people who are listening on audio, but here's a clip of Trinity kind of staring Athena down and giving her the thumbs down. That seems like an off-camera angle to me. She was in full character mode. Not impressed.
Yeah, I thought it was cool to see, man. I was always a pretty big Naomi fan of WWE and been kind of wondering when we're going to see her pop back up because she's an excellent talent. And yeah, I was the same way. I did not catch it when it happened until they addressed it later on and saw it on the internet. So yeah, really cool to see where that goes, man. I think they could have a hell of a program together if she ends up in ROH.
That's a huge get for ROH, man. If that's where she is targeting to go, which I kind of respect that. That's kind of the Sasha Banks move. Don't go to the direct competitor first. Go get your street cred. You go get that New Japan cred. You go get that Ring of Honor cred. Then you make your move from there. I think it's a huge get if that's where she lands.
That's what Johnny Gargano should have done instead of just coming back and debuting on the main roster.
I'm still waiting for Gargano and GCW, by the way, whatever.
Me too.
Yeah, I think it'd be fucking excellent. But yeah, man, I thought it was a good match. It was a great finish. I'm very impressed with Athena. There is at least one point in every match she has where I'm like physically shaken and uncomfortable because she's so stiff. I'm always worried for her opponent, but I haven't heard of any injuries, so she's just doing a killer job. Next match, man, TV title, Samoa Joe, Mark Briscoe. This is one that I think everybody and their mom was 100% sure they knew the finish was going to be. It's a good match. I'm not just going to come out and say that I hated it because I didn't. But I mean, the only thing I have in my notes from this one, man, this is a missed fucking opportunity. Like, I've gone back. I know it opens it up to be a bigger opportunity for Mark, maybe in the world title picture. I just thought it would have been a really great. I just think it's a missed opportunity. I think it was you had it offered up to you on a silver platter to give Mark Briscoe his first singles title here. Joe doesn't need the TV title by any means. And I don't know, man, it broke my heart. It was the first of many heartbreaks of the weekend. I was
Dude, one of the rare cold-blooded booking moves I've seen from Tony Khan. He's
so out of character on his end.
Yeah,
he's very much so.
He's pretty notorious for, if it's in your hometown, he's not like Vince. He'll let you get over. If the family's there, he'll let you. But man, this was a total misdirect booking move because Mark had his whole family in the front row. His kids are there giving him hugs. We think it's like, you've got the Reach for the Sky tag team titles that night. You're like, oh man, he's getting coronated tonight. And this happened. I was shocked. I was legit shocked.
And I don't know if you guys saw the backstage segment. They did like an interview with him, and like, man, it was just shaking. Like, I mean, he was just sitting on the ground talking about how he failed himself. He failed Jay. He failed his kids. He failed his mom and dad. And that was just, I mean, it's very compelling, great storytelling, man. But it hurt my heart. It was hard to watch.
And I think at the end of the day, if this is the step in a good direction, we have to have faith that they're going somewhere. And Mark had a say here. And I'm sure if Mark has a bigger piece to this, that he's going to be world champion or maybe get the TV title in a different space. Maybe they go to somewhere near Delaware and that he has a hometown match. I don't know what it's like, but I agree. It seems like a missed opportunity because SuperCard of Honor is their biggest event of the year. And this moment would live forever. Everyone crying. He brings his family in the ring. I just hope this pays off in a bigger way. And, I'm going to keep my faith here because I have, Tony Khan has the best interest in mind for ROH and the Briscoe family. So hopefully this leads to something bigger and better, but it sucked in the moment.
Yeah, it sucked. If anybody on this card had a say in the booking of their match, it was Mark Briscoe.
100%.
And I could just see him being like, not now, Tony, let's milk it. Let's, because it was kind of quick, man. They just got TV. It's only 5 weeks of, if you tell this story and take us all the way to Final Battle and you give us a really big moment, it would mean a lot.
Yeah, certainly. I think you're right. It didn't have a lot of build. I just think, especially after losing Jay, everybody just wanted to see.
We just wanted it.
We just wanted it. Everybody wanted it. And, sometimes that's when you're 100% sure is when that goes the other way. So
it was a cold-blooded weekend for booking, man. I kind of digged it.
The thing is, too, though, like this took the air out of the crowd for quite some time. And
oh, yeah.
The Tanahashi and the Daniel Garcia match suffered because of that.
Yep.
And I think that's also, but again, you can't book because you want the fans to go home happy every time. You have to make them chase it a little bit. And ROH might want to separate themselves from AEW with the fan pleasing. It's just bigger storytelling.
For sure. And I think that's a perfect transition, man, into the Garcia, the Tanahashi match. Like, that was my first note on that was, man, yeah, the crowd was just a lot flatter than they should have been for the start of this one. I mean, this is a dream match right here. But yeah, I mean, everybody kind of had the wind pulled out of their sails with Mark taking that loss. Did Tanahashi get his fucking teeth knocked out the night before? Did I hear that right?
One knocked out, but I don't know if it was a shooter or work. But yeah, you mentioned it. Teeth aside, the dude has no business working 2 nights in a row. He has no way that his body should be able to do something like that. And he was impressive both nights, but by the end of this match, he was worn down. Like he really was.
I love both of these guys, and it was a dream match, but let's be honest. You needed this match here because the 3 matches after this match, you couldn't have stuck any of those 3 in this position.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like as much as I hate to see Tanahashi, especially in a quote unquote let me up match after this devastating, shocking finish, it's like that's what you were there for, because after this it was the Reach for the Sky ladder match, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And this Tanahashi match was a happy accident. We talked about this obviously with Will Ospreay was supposed to be taking on Speedball at the Impact show in the New Japan Multiverse, but he couldn't do it because of shoulder injury. They called Tanahashi in, and I'm sure Tony Khan said, hey, you want to make some extra money a day after? And again, the back injury with Tanahashi, flirting with retirement. He's the ace of New Japan Pro Wrestling. He's a guy who has the resume that goes on for miles. Just getting in the ring for Daniel Garcia to have this on his resume saying, and even on a losing effort, was amazing to see him getting in there and mixing up. And it was one of those things that you'll never be able to take away from Daniel Garcia, because if you don't watch New Japan Pro Wrestling, the impact that a guy like Tanahashi has on a product, it was surreal to see him on this card. And also surreal, obviously, we'll talk about Shibata, but like the 2 of these guys on the same card, on the same night, on an ROH pay-per-view, for the diehard fans, man, a lot of payoff for that.
Yeah, most definitely. Cool to see Tanahashi get the win here. I will say, man, they're making Garcia such a good fucking heel, man. Like his heel work in here, like mocking Shinsuke Nakamura during the match, like it was really good shit. I mean, I love Daniel Garcia. I think he could go either way. I think he's got the potential to be a fucking white meat babyface down the road one day too. But they're really digging their, pun intended, digging their heels in on him being a heel, and I'm really enjoying it.
This was a little bit by color by numbers, a little bit with Tanahashi, and like the bar is so high for me though. For him, like you could say his match is good, and that's just like he could do a good match in his sleep. I was hoping for a great match, and I think the place on the card hurt it, but also the fact that he worked the night before hurt it. He got a signature offense in. The crowd didn't really react to anything but his signature offense. I'd like to see Tanahashi back in a big moment with ROH, and maybe we will in the future.
Yeah, hopefully so, man. I love seeing him in a Ring of Honor ring.
How old is he, Ace? How old's Tanahashi now?
He's 40 plus, so he's up there, but he has a lot of miles in that body, a lot of bumps. So the bump card's real full. Like, I think the back is absolutely torn up. And like I said, the fact that he was able to even to work with Jericho a few years back, like that was at this point, like 5-6 years ago. He's on, this is like house money at this point. The fact that we're still getting memorable moments from Tanahashi in these spots. I love it.
I had always heard he was kind of like New Japan's Jericho, you know,
or
like,
John Cena. Like,
yeah, in that kind of age range of elder statesman, veteran in the locker room. So, man, I'm with you, man. Those two back-to-back matches like that, he's putting some bumps, putting some bumps on his bump card, man.
Yeah, Speedball and Impact got the better version of him the night before. He woke up a little bit sore the morning of Friday, like, here we go, Daniel. Let's go into it.
Yeah.
Man, so Chad, you set it up. Next match was Reach for the Sky ladder match. So we had the team of the Kingdom versus Lucha Brothers versus La Facción Ingobernable with Rush and Dralistico versus Top Flight versus, who am I forgetting? I know there's a fifth one in there.
The Kingdom?
No, I got Kingdom.
Aussie Open, of course, my pick to win it.
Yeah.
Man, this was great. I mean, recapping this match is damn near impossible because, like, you saw it's just a fucking flurry, man. I mean, you saw every high spot, every double team move that you could imagine seeing. It was a great match. I really enjoyed it. They did not. Dante Martin fucked his foot up bad in this one. And I saw it.
That was a brutal break.
It was a brutal break. And like, brother played it off well. Like, I just saw him point to his foot, but like he didn't sell it on his face or anything when he first went down. And I just knew, I was like, man, I see him pointing to his foot. I hope he's all right. It looked like it went the way that it should not have gone. And then
I don't know why, but I saw it before he pointed
Same
to
here.
it.
Same.
I saw it and I was like, oh, fuck. His toes were pointing towards the back of his knee. And I'm like, man, that
was Sid Vicious level. Like him,
his
boot hanging out. But allegedly the update on him is not as bad. They didn't give an official update, but he's out in an extended period of time. Don't get me wrong. But we were looking at, maybe never wrestling again. But I think at this point.
Yeah, they were calling it a Joe Theismann break, right?
Yeah.
Initially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God. And like Chad, the exact same thing. Like I saw it, I was like, man, that looks bad. And then I saw him point to his foot. And then when they didn't show the replay of that, like they showed the replay of all the high spots at the end of the match. And that was,
and they went away from
the high spots, but what's the point of destroying off the top of a ladder through tables? Lucky it didn't go. The only reason it didn't go as well as it should have was because the table slid just a tad where he had to land on his feet. But the match didn't need it. That's the other thing that really frustrated me. It did not need that because it was already great. And it was like sprinkles on top of sprinkles. You didn't need that in the match. And it's just like, obviously we can look back with hindsight and say, like, wish it didn't happen because then Dante wouldn't have got hurt. But
dude, they're cursed, man.
They are. And like, that's what I was going to say, man. I was like, these guys have got to quit taking these fucking risks like that, especially when it's not necessary, because like we can't, it's tough to keep both Dante and Darius healthy. And I mean, thank God it's not as bad as it was, but yeah, that was the first thing I thought. I was like, God bless, you guys are cursed. Like you cannot catch a break as soon as one of you gets back together. I mean, what have we had them both at here? Like, I mean, they've been together for 3 months where they've both been healthy. Has it even been that long?
Exactly. Like, because Darius has been hurt twice.
Yeah.
And now Dante's hurt.
And in pretty quick succession too for Darius. So man, I hope they learn from it. I mean, they did awesome, but Ace, you said it. It didn't need it. They didn't need that spot. I mean, this match was great. I really thought there for a minute that LFI was going to take it, and they swerved us a good bit here, man. Lucha Brothers take the win here, which I'm not mad about. I mean, I think when we originally, I love it. I'm excited to see. We're going to see. Hopefully, we see them full-time stint in this in ROH for a while. I think that's fine. I mean, we're not really doing a whole lot with them in AEW TV, so excited to see them on this stage full-time, man. I thought it was a great finish. I never get sick of. I mean, give the Lucha Brothers all the belts, man. I never get sick.
I'm not trying to discredit any tag team in this match. I love all of these guys, especially Aussie Open and Lucha Brothers. But in my opinion, the right team won on the sole fact of the next team that's taking these titles after the Briscoes has to be a marquee team. Then you can move it off onto, the Kingdom or whoever. But like, I feel like you had to have a just dyed in the wool tag team, legendary tag team. You couldn't just shift this off on Top Flight. I'm sorry.
Right.
It wouldn't have fit. Like, they have to continue that. It's a big deal to see Mark give those titles over. And we saw not only Mark came out with the titles to give it to the Lucha Brothers, but then we saw FTR come out, which I thought was a nice touch.
Yeah.
They're the only team I didn't feel like had a path. It's so interesting because I didn't think of that as a full-time team in ROH, and it might be a really good fit for the time being if they're not being used on AEW television for right now. I personally wanted Aussie Open to get the win because I think we've seen they've been the highlight of every weekly TV.
That's who I wanted to.
Point? And I think Aussie Open probably has a path to be feuding with the Lucha Brothers, which is going to lead to some classic matches through the spring and possibly summer. So I'm open to it. I'm not mad about the Lucha Brothers winning at all. They're one of my favorite tag teams of all time. And if they're going to be in ROH, they add to the prestige. Just go down the list of guys that have held those titles. They're just another great tag team. And it's the perfect transition from the Briscoes and passing it off with Mark on the stage. It was a great moment.
Yeah. And I think it's a good way too to maybe get some eyes from people who are not watching ROH weekly. They're like, oh shit, the Lucha Brothers are on there now. Like,
Absolutely.
hopefully we get some more eyes on the product this way too. I thought it was really cool having Mark come down. That moment that he had with Mike Bennett and Matt Taven, they were all had tears in their eyes hugging because Taven and Bennett, Matt Taven very close with Jay. Everybody was
that's a lost era of ROH. Not a lot of people were watching the Sinclair era of the tag team matches, but they were tearing it up for a bit. The Briscoes and the Kingdom were for the end of ROH. So it was apropos for them to be there in the moment. And there was a path for them to win the titles. I'm glad it wound up being the Lucha Brothers. I'm not the biggest fan of Taven in the tag team form. I like him better as a main eventer in ROH, but obviously a conversation for Honor Side. Tune in 10 p.m. on Thursdays. But yeah, this was a good match. It really was.
Yeah, really good match. And speaking of belts, man, if you guys didn't see it, Google the new ROH tag team belts. The Briscoe brothers they're
the side plates.
Side plates. They are solidified in infamy. I mean, not that they needed any help, but them having like an actual physical representation on the tag belts. I never would have come up with that idea, and I absolutely love it.
Beautiful.
Way to go, Tony Khan. Incredible work. Moving right along, guys. We got the Pure Championship between Wheeler Yuta and Katsuyori Shibata. I know I've thrown this term around all week leading up to it, but man, talk about a fucking dream match. I thought that this match told the best story of the night at this point on the card. It was really, really great shit. Fucking Yuta continuing to develop as a heel, getting that low blow in there. Instead of it being a closed fist that he hid, I thought that was great. Really good storytelling. But man, yeah, Shibata, everybody's a little nervous about Shibata coming into this match, his health, the brain bleed, all the hematoma, all that shit. I thought he looked great, man. And he didn't work reckless. Like I wasn't worried about him at any point in this match. This match was killer. And I didn't, we talked about it on Honor Society. I didn't pick Shibata to get this win, but God damn, I'm so glad he did, man. Like, this is going to do wonders for this division. It's going to do wonders for this belt. Wonders for the storyline. Like, I mean, the dream matches we can have moving forward are just endless. Like, insert literally anyone, and I'm going to eat it up.
I mean, Shibata, and let's just take a moment to give much respect to his. I love his gear, clean as a whistle, black, with the Japanese flag right on the waistline. He looks like, I don't know, man, there's something when a guy can pull off just straight black tights, there's something to that. Shibata, this was surreal seeing this dude in this match to me. It was totally surreal.
This was like an extended squash match. You mentioned you weren't worried about Shibata in a lot of ways, but if you go back and watch it, I think Yuta got probably 2 moves in. I was waiting for the tide to turn for Yuta to turn up the heat and put Shibata in peril. Never happened. And then all of a sudden the match was over. But this was you mentioned Colton, storytelling was amazing here because it is telling the story that Wheeler is just in over his head. He has bit off more than he can chew. Here is the guy the top of the dojo of all the guys you're just clowning on weekly television. Here's Shibata, who you think you could take lightly, and he takes you to class and takes you to class some more and then beats you up and takes your title. There's more story to be written here. And I think we saw Claudio retain later in the night, but I think they're trying to transition BCC off the path because they're going to be huge about AEW programming going forward, blood and guts, and they're running roughshod. But I think this story with Shibata and Wheeler is not done. And I think that's a great part because I think Wheeler may get a lot out of this coming out of this match where, yeah, he's the heel, but he's going to go in as an underdog next match because no one's going to expect him to even come close because he was bodied the whole match. He got nothing aside from the cheap shots. And Shibata even then kind of laughed in his face after Wheeler spit in his face. It was over. And you're waiting again, like, okay, how is Wheeler going to get out of this? Because that's what the TV has been every week. Wheeler gets out of it by cheating. It never happened. And Shibata was showcased in the perfect way. It was an extended squash match. But why not, man? Shibata's a legend.
Yeah, putting that young boy in his place, man. Love to see
Great.
it, especially after all the shit he talked. And, you don't see, like you said, yeah, we haven't seen a pure match where Wheeler's been the first to exhaust a rope break in quite a while, man. So, yeah, it's incredible storytelling.
And it's a great example. I thought this match was a phenomenal example of booking on a partnership co-promotion type of situation. This shows you that Tony can work with other promoters and not have an ego about shit. You know what I mean? Like with New Japan, which is he under contract with New Japan or is he free?
No, he's I don't
New
think
Japan won't touch him with a 10-foot pole right now.
Because of the Wrestle Kingdom moment. So,
but I mean, that's a big thing though, to have just this guy come in. And I feel like Tony, stuff like this, even though he's not contracted, he's got the bad blood with the company, I feel like New Japan looks at stuff like this and
100%.
This is stuff that gains you respect from another company. Like, okay, this guy's not just going to put his guys over at all costs.
When I did right by his legacy for sure.
Yeah.
And I think it too might be an effort for Tony being giving him a platform to, prove that he's not just going to be completely reckless and he can do business, and hopefully give him an opportunity to make a return to New Japan in the future. Because I think it would really, I mean, I don't watch a ton of New Japan, but it would hurt my heart to know that that's how it ended for him. And that was
right.
It. They don't trust him anymore, and he never gets a chance to perform on that stage again. Like I hope that's, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised at all if that's part of Tony's plan here.
Well, I would love to see him back in the ring with a guy like Okada. Like that's where I understand that's where the match where he got hurt, but his career was, again, when I talk about extended house money, Shibata was supposed to be out of the ring. He's supposed to be retired as of 4 years ago. And here he is in a huge moment. And he's only worked, I think at this point, 4 matches since. And I think he's probably bumped a total of like 3 times. And most of those were the Ren Narita match at Wrestle Kingdom when they got pissed because it was supposed to be a sparring match and wound up being a shoot, which was a disaster. But I'm hoping that we can see this run here, and it's going to be interesting going forward because eventually he's going to have to take a little bit of a beating unless he's going to have that Brock Lesnar dominant type of style where he just kills people on this run, but he's going to have to bump a little bit. And I don't know. We saw him bump a little bit here, taking some headshots, but I noticed personally watching the match and being familiar with the style that Wheeler usually works and Shibata, he was taking a little bit easy on him with the headshots. And I'm not saying he should go hard on him, but there was it felt
he
like
was
Wheeler
pulling his punches a little bit for
sure. And I don't want to be disrespectful. I just felt that way watching because those Shibata matches back in the day, man, talk about guys going out there and killing each other. It makes Gunther, Sheamus, and Drew look light. So
yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
Well, moving forward, we got the main event: Eddie Kingston versus Claudio Castagnoli for the Ring of Honor World Title. Oh man, talk about some disappointments. This was I'll tell you right now, Ace, I said that I was going to set my fucking couch on fire in my living room if Eddie didn't win this match. My couch is still intact, but I was pretty fucking hot. But I don't know. Hot's not the right word, man. I was just I think my jaw just hit the floor at the finish of this. I mean, not to bury the lead here, but it was a hell of a match, man. I mean, it was a war of attrition. Like these guys, I mean, you could feel the hate and the tension between these guys. Incredible match. I mean, and there were so many close finishes. There were so many times that I was like, oh shit, Eddie's got it. Oh fuck, Claudio's got it. Like it told an incredible story. The chop exchange between these guys was unreal, man. Like it hurt my back just watching. Like it was it was a great match, but man, that finish really caught me off guard. I mean, Eddie's face, I think everybody in the crowd looked just like Eddie when Claudio got him on that roll up and hit the 3. I was like, there's no way. This can't be it. This can't be how this ends. And yeah, like you said, Chad, it was pretty cold-blooded booking all weekend.
Yeah, it really was, man.
I'm not mad about it. I think that it, this I've been saying on Honor Society that this story was set up very well, but it was only 5 weeks, and I think that there is a little bit more that we can do here. I mean, this is not the final chapter by any means between Eddie and Claudio. Eddie said it himself, man. He took the mic and he was like, how much time do we have left? Like, it started he's like, shit, fuck, motherfucker, I don't care, find me all you want. And he was like, I'll just say this right now. He's like, MJF, I love that he threw that dig at MJF in there, man. He's like, MJF gets 5 minutes every week, let me have, or gets 30 minutes every week, let me have 5. And he just throws it out there. He's like, fuck you, Claudio. I'm coming for you. This ain't over. And I thought that was the perfect way to wrap it up. But man, yeah, I mean, my heart was already broken. It really didn't need any more breaking for the rest of the weekend. But boy, it got it. And it also, it proved that we have no idea exactly what they're doing with BCC. I mean, obviously BCC is going to be top heels on AEW, but they took the belt off Yuta, left it on Claudio. So I think we're going to, and also, I said that we're not going to see Moxley on ROH TV at all. He came out to the ring with Yuta, which was cool. Yep. I did not expect that. So, I mean, I like I like the separation of AEW and Ring of Honor being like their own things, but I think you can tastefully have people double dipping.
100. Those little things, I think, create an overall universe that is cool.
Yeah.
Like when you see those little crossings, I dig that.
So yeah, obviously the ROH tapings are going to be on Wednesday night. They're going to be on Long Island, my stopping grounds over here. So is there a chance that they tape in bulk? Do you think we see possibly a rematch between Claudio and Eddie where they change the title on one of these tapings? Because I circled New York on my calendar and being like, if they're taping in New York, Eddie Kingston's from here. Maybe they want to save the moment for the hometown pop.
That's
true. They're going to tape in bulk and have them lose the title, but maybe bring attention to the product. I don't know. My wheels are spinning a bit about it.
Yeah, a hometown pop for it would be just absolutely bonkers, man. I would love.
It would have to be on the first one, though. It'd have to be on the first taping because if you do it week 3, everyone's going to know, and they're going to.
They'll
everyone will know that. Yeah, exactly. The spoilers will be out there. People have done title changes with spoilers before on SmackDown and NWA. We know title changes take place, but maybe they do one of those situations where they tape 2 endings and then people don't actually know what actually happened.
Oh man, yeah, I would love that because I mean, I don't foresee us. I mean, Ace, what's the next Ring of Honor pay-per-view we got coming up?
It should be Final Battle coming.
Final Battle, and it's going to be. It's we're looking at 2, maybe 3 months away from now. I feel like we don't wait that long. I mean, I've not been unhappy with any of the storytelling that we're doing. So I mean, you could wait that long, and I'm sure it would be compelling as fuck. But yeah, I think it would be a little bit of a missed opportunity to not have him pick it up in the hometown.
Seeing the Jakara stuff and the highlights of the old feuds, and I thought Eddie held his own. The fans wanted it, but you can't give them everything in once, and Eddie has to chase it a little bit. I think in a lot of ways, Eddie's better chasing the title than holding the title. I know we haven't seen him hold the title, but I'm imagining in my head, he is a guy that playing the underdog chasing is where he thrives. And as long as they keep the momentum and keep presenting him in a strong way, I think Eddie Kingston has a lot to do in the ROH main event scene. But they have to make sure people believe. You don't want people to tune out and say, Eddie has no chance. Or when it does happen, people don't appreciate it like they would have in the past. It's a delicate balance right now because Claudio is doing great work, but I think it would have been, it's not a missed opportunity to give Eddie the title here, but it certainly could be in the future if they miss the exact point to cash out their chips at the casino, so to say.
I think this match, and there's a couple other, the Briscoe match, the Cody match at Mania, this weekend was a prime example of an issue in wrestling of when it comes to booking, there's the fan, I feel like today's fan, there's a lot of instant gratification. You want it now. But there's also we want these stories, the longer they go, if they're done right, the more emotion it pulls out of you. So it's kind of like knowing when to hit it at its peak and pull the trigger on something and not miss that zenith of the story. but also not just placate those fans that want instant gratification. It's a fine balance of like, Sami Zayn at Elimination Chamber, that was at a crescendo and it'll never be at that crescendo again. And I think they missed that opportunity. But then when I look at Eddie losing here, I feel like, no, this is just the beginning of a long journey that I'm here for. So it's kind of walking that tightrope of instant gratification meets good long-term booking.
And that's why a lot of the best bookers, the Gordon Sullys, the Jerry Jarrett's, go down the list of the famous bookers, even Vince McMahon, being able to book long-term stories is challenging because there's got to be the initial fan service piece where you want to just make everybody in the building happy. And that the same thing could be said about, the finish to WrestleMania, where you look at it in the moment, like you could have sent home 81,000 people ecstatic like they did on night one. But if you're following where the story's going and if you're confident in the culmination and the conclusion of your story, where it's a page turn, you got people going to the next spot here.
Yep.
And you're confident that whatever is to come is better than what would have been, then that's a challenge, man. Cause you're, like you said, you missed opportunities. The Sammy thing, you'll never get back, because that Eddie Guerrero moment where he beat Lesnar, they could have easily said, nah, we won't do it. And then they missed the opportunity. You'll never get that moment in time again in El Paso, with the world title. That there's moments that live forever, and wrestling is always about moments. And is this Eddie Kingston on that scale? No, because I think he's going to get a moment in a bigger spot. Even though SuperCard of Honor is their biggest show of the year, I think there's a bigger spot for ROH for him to get that moment and win the title.
Certainly. And I think too, I think them taping gives them the opportunity, or gives them a little bit of insurance to not just totally blow it. Like they're going to be able to plan a little bit further ahead. I think WWE does that a lot, where they'll be like, oh, okay, we're going to do it later down the line. I mean, it happens with every storyline they put Bray in. Like the setup's great and the payoff's just shit. And I think that they're going to be able to pull it off with Eddie really, really well. And I think you hit the nail on the head, Ace. I want to see him with that title, but it is better story of him chasing the title. So, I mean, I do expect him to get it. I do expect him to get it. I don't exactly expect him to hold it for a super long time, but I'm definitely not going to get sick of seeing him chase it by any means.
Eddie is Tommy Dreamer, dude.
Exactly.
Eddie's Tommy Dreamer. He's the lovable loser. He's the guy, every time you see him, you want him to win it all, and he never does. That's his character. Like, that's what makes him. If he wasn't that guy who always lost the big match, I don't think fans would care as much as they do right now. They would. If he was winning every big match. I mean, we love Eddie, but that's kind of the charm, man. The underdog, the lovable loser. I love that about Eddie.
100%.
But yeah, man, overall, I thought it was a killer show. I haven't been disappointed by a Ring of Honor pay-per-view since Tony bought it. It's only getting better with them having weekly TV to build it up. I can't wait for Thursday, man. That's all I gotta say.
10 p.m. Thursdays on YouTube. Not stream, and it's not audio, so you guys gotta tune in and hang out with us.
Yeah. You gotta look at our mugs. We're pretty good looking dudes though, so good for you.
Oh yeah.
Colton, dude, thanks for joining us for another SuperCard of Honor segment.
Yeah, man. Thank you guys for having me on. Have a good rest of the show.
Colton, we'll see you, bud.
See you.
All right, let's travel back in time to big story number 2 since we went to 3.
Big story 2.
WrestleMania 39 is in the books, and lost in the sauce of this sale to Endeavor is the Mania Fallout. We had a 2-night spectacular event. In my opinion, we'll talk about it. Night 1 was superior to night 2 by a lot. But just on a scale of, aside from the results here, WWE is talking about how WrestleMania 39 generated the most money that they've ever had for a live event, $21.6 million, breaking the previous record by 27%, with 161,892 in attendance over the course of 2 nights. They generated more than $20 million in sponsorship revenue. We mentioned the Cinnamon Toast Crunch tongue in cheek, but that kind of stuff goes a long way. It doubled the previous record. Merchandise sales are up big because of Cody Rhodes selling a lot of those merchandise shirts, and he's been a big seller. And the social media metrics were up 42% from last year's record. And WWE's claiming they had over 500 million views and 11 million hours of video consumed over Saturday and Sunday. The getting's good, man. Endeavor's getting a hot product. And I'm not saying WWE's at the level of the Attitude Era, but they are approaching. We haven't seen this level of investment from the fans. And it might be the storytelling they're doing with Sammy and the Bloodline, but there is people are wanting to see what WWE's bringing to the table.
No, this is the most exciting they've been in a long time. I think you can give all that credit to the Bloodline storyline and the return of Cody Rhodes. It's injected a lot into this company. I think Bianca Belair is also someone people love to see. The Rhea stuff is something a lot of people love to see. I think they're getting more fluid in their storytelling. You know, they still screw up, but every wrestling company screws up with stuff. But right now, man, they're moving. They're moving. And if you think back to 3, 4, 5 years ago, this company was in a dark place. There was a lot of fans unhappy with the way they were booking things. And I think they are hitting a stride we haven't seen in a while from this company. And this Mania was an example of that.
Yeah, and you see the stories weaving in and out. Like you got the Dominic and Ray story weaving in with the Rhea and Charlotte story, and we'll of course get to that. But the opening of the night for night one, Austin Theory and John Cena for the U.S. title. Crowd's hot. Let's just say this: the crowd in LA was hot, and that adds to the show with a lot. They can make a mediocre match feel really good. Point in case, second night with Omos and Brock Lesnar, they make moments feel special. This was probably the most underwhelming match night. That being said, I thought Austin Theory and Cena never really got off to a good start here. It went about 11 minutes and 19 seconds. No big near falls at all. It felt like it just ended with the A-Town down or whatever. I think that's what he calls the finish, but it's like a go to sleep on when he puts his knee up. Crowd wanted Cena to win. Obviously, Cena looked old, in my opinion.
He looked old.
He looked old, and nostalgia has its place on the card, and it did its job. But I'm not sure if Cena still has that ability to make, like, when you wake up Monday morning, does Theory feel like he's the next transcendent star? He feels the same to me, which is, I guess, a testament to the lack of build to this, and he doesn't feel special coming out of this win. And I think maybe that rub is off of Cena for some reason.
I could not agree more. I was going to say the same thing. I didn't feel the weight of it being John Cena.
Yeah.
It didn't feel big. I loved that he low blowed him for the win. I mean, yeah. Perfect. Because we know John Cena, before that main event even hit, he was probably almost home from a plane flight. John Cena was the opener match because he probably jumped on a flight wherever he had to go, whatever movie he had to go shoot. I'm with you, man. It didn't feel like, damn, Theory just got made. I didn't get that feeling from this.
Yeah, and I think about all the Mount Rushmore guys, and a lot of people have seen on their Mount Rushmore, and go back in the day, like Cena, I don't know, maybe it's because he's been overexposed, he's been beaten before. Other guys have been protected in different eras, and that's not Cena's fault. He's been very giving to the future of wrestling. So, we'll see how Austin Theory is presented. We're about a half hour into Raw right now, so we'll see how Austin Theory is being presented. And like we said on the build, Theory's going to be there, Cena won't be there. But that's where the card kind of tapered off. But we moved into, the next match here was the Fatal 4-Way Tag Team match with the Street Profits. And this match had no right being as good as it was. I thought this was a lot of fun. Not a lot on the line. Not a lot on the line here, but the Street Profits went out there and stole the show, in my opinion. But some of the other tag teams, like Alpha Academy, deserve some love. The Viking Raiders do as well. Strowman and Ricochet. Ricochet is just, we talk about Vikingo doing the things he does, but go back to Ricochet's days as Prince Puma. He can go. I would love to see Vikingo and Ricochet go in there and have no limitations of what they can bring out to the table.
I'm the biggest hater of Braun Strowman and Ricochet, but damn it, they're getting over. Who am I? Fans love them, man. That team is actually getting over. Fans are getting behind them. So it was shockingly fun. I got to be honest. Like, I could sit here and hate on it, but the team showed out. I thought everybody had good spots. It was a fun match.
Some other matches in the card. We'll go a little bit out of order, but this match might have been sequentially the next match, but it was Logan Paul taking on Seth Rollins. And I went into this night thinking this would be the match of the night. And I don't know if it was match of the night because how good the main event was, but it certainly did its part. Another great outing from Logan Paul. Seth Rollins goes out there, and I had him picking winning. I was hopeful he'd come out and win because Seth Rollins is so desperate for a big win and a big moment after that Cody feud. And he came out. Obviously, he beat Roman by DQ, but Seth has been in desperate need for a big win. And this was fun watch, and everyone loved it. And I'm apparently old. I watched this with the Remarkable Wrestling Crew, and everybody knew who KSI was. I had no idea who this guy was.
I had no idea who he was either.
The Prime thing. They're all popping that he's out there. This was awesome to watch with a younger generation of fans. So like, these guys are about 10 years younger than me, and the Cena they were talking about, but even watching like Seth Rollins, and you could feel the weight of a guy like Logan Paul being involved in wrestling, where he's very relevant with the guys that are younger here. And Seth showed out, man. Like Seth, and I understand Logan Paul is an athlete, but there's got to be a structure to a match. And Seth Rollins is a ring general at this point, a veteran that's able to construct matches.
I love Seth Rollins. Like if I had to pick one guy in WWE right now, Seth Rollins. If I had to pick one guy for AEW to steal, Seth Rollins. I think he's the most underutilized guy, and he's used. So it's weird to say he's underutilized, but I just see that guy as the guy. I know Roman's the guy, but Seth is so underrated. Hats off to their entrances. They had the conductor come out, and the crowd was singing along with Seth's song. You had Logan Paul in just full douchebag mode, realizing it. The way they shot Logan Paul as he's coming to the ring on a zip line with KSI in the pure bottle, waddling down the ramp. Like, I'm like, this guy, they're building him as a super heel, because I hated that guy. And I'm not even like a Logan Paul hater. I think he's great in the ring, but I don't have a problem with the guy. But just that entrance alone, I'm like, this guy sucks. Like, I hated him.
They had a good shot of Seth doing his entrance, like still conducting the crowd, and he's yawning in the back. They did a really good job presenting.
It was great.
There was a lot of fun spots in this match, and I thought the big piece to this was some of the way it was structured. They masterfully told a story in this match, and Rollins got the win, but Logan Paul came out looking impressive, and that has been the goal in all these Logan Paul matches. Like, it felt the same. They followed the same chemistry and formula they had with the Roman match, where he held his own against one of the best and premier athletes in all of wrestling. And he come out, like, the announcers did a great job putting them over. And I'm not a big Michael Cole fan, but he did a great job in these two nights to really sell up what's been going on in the ring. And they sold up Logan Paul as being like, even in losing effort, he had Seth Rollins right there. And, the spot obviously where he splashed KSI through the announce table, that was well done. It was a fun match. It really was. And the fans, again, took the match that probably would have been mediocre somewhere else and took it to the next level. And I went back and watched the second time because the crowd involvement was really a lot of fun.
Yeah, I enjoyed the match. It was good.
And then we had the 6-woman tag team match. And this was a legacy match. Trish Stratus and Becky Lynch and Lita taking on Bayley, Dakota Kai, and Io Sky. 14 minutes and 35 seconds. My main takeaway from this match is Lita has no business being in the ring. She has lost many steps. And I don't know if this is the conversation I was having during the show. And Lita and Trish obviously were cream of the cream in the early 2000s as far as women's divisions go. And they were essential to where the women's division eventually got main eventing Raw, being the main feud and being presented in a certain way that wasn't the way women were presented in wrestling for a long time. But wrestling, and this speaks volumes about where we are now, wrestling has evolved so far past what these guys were able to do in the ring. And, Lita, it was a good nostalgia moment, but just watching her struggle in there, like doing the poetry in motion, she couldn't hang. And they got the win here, but whatever.
She couldn't hang. Trish looked old. She looked good. I'm not talking old in physical form. I'm talking the way she moved in the ring. She looks great. Like, I
just think it's a testament to where women's wrestling is. We're used
really
to
is, man.
Masha Slamovich and Allie Katch and Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, Rhea Ripley going out there and tearing it the fuck up. And they just don't do it at that level. It's just, it's like watching people. It's like watching 1920s baseball compared to today.
Yeah. It's, I hate to say it's left them behind, but do I like seeing old legends pop up on Mania? Everybody does. Everybody loves seeing that. But I don't know. This was one of the matches that I feel like they could have. I didn't need this match. I didn't enjoy it. I thought it was herky jerky. It was start stop. There was no flow. I feel like the performers never lost themselves in a flow. Felt very slow to me. Wasn't a big fan of this match.
Yeah, agreed. And we move into the next match here. Rey Mysterio took on Dominic Mysterio, and this was, you want to go with storytelling?
Phenomenal.
Storytelling as far as if this wasn't happening in the era where the bloodline's overshadowing everything, the Rey Mysterio Dom story has been so amazingly told throughout. And this was a tale as old as time, father versus son. And I thought this delivered, and I love the tribute just in the beginning of the match. You go with Dom's attire. He's wearing the Halloween Havoc 1997 top that Rey wore. He came out in the Rey mask, wearing Eddie-inspired tights with mommy instead of heat on the back. And then you got Rey Mysterio wearing Flash gear with a Great Muta-inspired mask, coming out to the ring in a lowrider to Eddie's music. Hearing Eddie's music, by the way, absolute chills. The pop it got was amazing. But this match was great. And shout out, by the way, to local wrestler NYWC Dan Barry, who was front and center. He was one of the cops that brought Dom out to the ring. I love this match. 14 minutes and 30 seconds. I think time will be very kind to this match, especially as Dom goes on to do bigger and better things throughout wrestling. And this was a coming out party for Dom and a losing effort. But this told a really good story and showed the character progression that Dom has had over the past 6 months. If you look back to where he was prior to this heel turn with Judgment Day, I mean, awful. But Dom's character work is beautifully done. Throwing the water in Aaliyah's face.
Incredible.
Everything's been great.
Incredible where Dom has came. Give this guy some love. A lot of people shit on this kid, me included. A lot of people shit on this kid, wanting him back in the Performance Center. Give this guy some love. He killed it. He has killed it. The Judgment Day thing, man, what a turn for this guy. I mean, honestly, like it's impressive. You rarely see someone who is just getting buried by fans. They're calling for your career. Your second generation, they don't give a shit. All second generation means to them is more expectations. You have expectations out the ass. Being the son of the greatest luchador to ever lace up a pair of boots. Dude goes into the Hall of Fame. On the weekend, you are having a match with your pops, who you've lived in the shadow of since you decided to put on a pair of boots of your own. Hats off to Dom, man. This to me was the outside of the bloodline stuff. Take the bloodline stuff out of this weekend. This is the best story of the weekend. I mean, it's not even close. It's not even close.
Seeing Dom with that mask on was surreal.
Incredible. Him in the cop car, in the prison. Yeah. I mean, this was just fun, dude. How could you not? I love this. If you would have asked me a year ago, I would be like glowingly praising Dominic Mysterio. I'd be like, no way in hell, but hats off to the kid.
Investment in the story. You heard the pop on SmackDown where Rey finally hit Dom, and
so good.
They have a future star on their hands right now with Dom, and I think they could really tap into it, and it was awesome. But
it was so good.
We won't cover this match at length, but Pat McAfee defeated The Miz. They did a segment here, and a little get me up scene. And Miz, a former world champion, main evented WrestleMania 27, beat John Cena. He was done dirty this weekend. Lost to McAfee in an embarrassing way, and then night 2 lost to fucking Snoop Dogg. It's supposed to be Shane, but
after Shane blows his quad out,
so insane. But
McMahon's and their quads.
These next 2 matches were the cream de la cream as far as WrestleMania matches go, and this is what you want from matches. And either one, you guys did it on the debate, such a great conversation you had about a week ago. What should main event? At this point, it doesn't seem like there was a wrong choice. Rhea Ripley defeated Charlotte Flair to win the SmackDown Women's Championship, 23 minutes and 34 seconds. This was paced like an absolute big-time main event. This could have main evented any WrestleMania, any year, and it would have felt big. Charlotte did a great job of making Rhea feel, as the underdog in a lot of ways, but then Rhea came up. Obviously, the heel, the fans were behind her. This was every bit as advertised, and you want to talk about a point in case of how women's wrestling's progressed over time. Compare this to Lita and Trish running the hits in the ring, doing the moonsault and all that. Rhea and Charlotte went out there and ripped it up. This is one of the better matches of the weekend, top 3 at least, because
it's my second.
It was
out of the weekend.
Fantastic.
This was number 2 out of just Mania. Like the second best. You could argue it was number 2 of the entire weekend of every promotion, because these ladies killed it. Charlotte is Charlotte. Arguably of the last decade, the greatest women's wrestler of the last decade. And Rhea, This was, I know it's cliche. I know you hear it said all the time, a passing of the torch. Maybe, I don't think Charlotte's done or anything like that, but this is hey, I just made you. And that's not on Charlotte. Rhea made herself. Rhea showed up. Rhea showed out. I loved this match. It was incredible. Maybe it was quite possibly my favorite Mania match, but there's one that kind of edges it out. But I love this match.
Star-making moment, and I think Rhea was their star going into this one, and she was the right choice to win the Rumble, the right person to strap the rocket to, and she's the future of the women's division and the present at the moment. So
I think she has more star quality than any female in WWE.
It's art, I would say arguably, because they
Bianca,
squandered Becky,
but she's unique.
Yeah,
like a lot. Me and Steve were talking about a lot of the roster. They kind of blend together with their character choices and their gear choices. Everything. My girlfriend, who's not a wrestling fan, walks into the room and at the Royal Rumble with the women's Royal Rumble, and she's like, I can't tell any of the women apart. They all look the same. All neon gear. Rhea stands out. When you see her, you're like, she's special. And I don't know, I'm a big Rhea Ripley fan, man.
It was a great match, and I think it's going to age over time. And in a lot of ways, I think Meltzer was saying this will be exaggerated how good it was over time, and rightfully so. The atmosphere added to it, but the women went out there and they told a great story. They killed it. They lived up to a main event bill, and the other one that got the nod as far as main event, this lived up as well. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn defeated the Usos to win the Undisputed Tag Team Championship, 24 minutes and 17 seconds. This was epic storytelling. This was long-term build. The tag titles on a big stage for the first time that the tag titles are being presented this way, and they're so goddamn ugly. But for the tag titles to be presented in a big way, and the Usos' reign outside of Roman's world title reign, it has been just as impressive. That they're run through the roster and going through, and the Usos have really established themselves as becoming this legendary legacy tag team. And I think WWE's put the whole machine behind them to make them feel as if they are the biggest thing in tag team wrestling ever. And a lot of it is the propaganda of WWE, but in a lot of ways they've lived up. They go out there and they took a tag division that was dead on its feet and turned it into something that feels special. And for the tag titles to be main eventing, and for Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn to be main eventing for the tag titles and Kevin Owens 2 years in a row main eventing WrestleMania, by the way, sent the crowd home happy. People were singing the song going out of the arena. This was absolutely excellent. I think this is another match that'll be remembered very fondly over time. And to think about, again, the path for Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens to get there. Guys wrestling in front of less than 100 people in California, just miles down the road. And they're standing there in front of 90,000 people, tagging with your best friend, winning the tag titles. That's the stuff you dream about as a kid.
A lot of history
of PWG and Super Dragon, and paying homage to it on the tights, wearing matching gear. So I know you're happy about that. But I love it, being a Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn fan. And we saw some homages to their past. He didn't do the top. Sami didn't do the top rope brainbuster we used to see from Jericho in smaller spaces, but he did it on the apron. The Hulula kick got the win here, and they were the stars, man. They felt like larger than life stars, and rightfully so got the win. They made the right choice. And now looking how the second night went, I mean, maybe
you had to do this.
There was a chance that they didn't get it, even though it feels obvious. There was a chance maybe that Vince was been like, no, the Usos got to dominate and have them go home.
Yeah,
it's possible.
Yeah, I was the biggest critic of this match just because the journey of Kevin joining Sami, them being apart. They've been apart, together, against each other so many times back and forth. I'd kind of tired on it. But going into this match, it did kind of hook me back in, because you're right, man. When they were coming down that ramp, they were stars. That crowd loved them some KO and Sami. And I'm not huge on the Usos. Like I like them, but this greatest tag team of all time moniker, I don't buy into that. But this bloodline story, and Roman kind of alluded to this in his press conference, Roman has elevated these guys. I know a lot of people loved them and called them a top tag team prior to the bloodline, but this bloodline story has brought these guys up to another level, not even on match quality or anything like that. I'm talking strictly character, it factor. When I look at them now,
100%.
they're no longer just the painted face Usos with the big baggy shorts. These guys are legit dudes that I buy into. So I found myself falling for this match, even though I was not hyped for it at all. It was a nice piece to the puzzle. And the nice thing, man, I know this is kind of after the match, KO and Sammy get a heroes just win over these dudes. They do the press conference, and you talked about them giving honor to the PWG Super Dragon. They had it on their shorts, which was a great touch. And then at the press conference, they had to hook me in and just make me love them all over again, because they give the reference to the Briscoes. I have a clip, and I love it because they mentioned the Briscoes, and then Mark Briscoe went on Twitter and tweeted back to them. And I just thought, this is the shit that I love about pro wrestling, is the history of guys in the trenches when they weren't making millions of dollars, in it for the love of the game and showing that mutual respect. I love this.
I said PWG helped us get here. Super Dragon helped us get here. There's two other guys that really helped us get here. Their names are Mark and Jay Briscoe. We lost Jay recently. I really hope we made him proud tonight, because, God, great guys, and we really miss them.
Tweet from Mark Briscoe. Was on the red eye last night. Sammy, Kevin. Just watched the match. Tag team action at its finest. Congrats, brothers. Love you all. Usos. Can't wait to do it on the other side. #respect.
Just classy, man.
Beautiful. Can't help but have chills when you look at something like that. And the companionship and the brotherhood that is pro wrestling, in the miles traveled in the car, on the couches you sleep on, these memories are made. And for guys to watch, the Briscoes are, Mark's on a huge stage as well. But the fact that Owens and Zayn can look out, and I'm sure it was surreal. And I think Sammy mouthed it to Kevin, to him in the ring, "This is wild." And seeing them standing across the ring, and it's huge for tag team wrestling. I know Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn are not a tag team, but in a lot of ways they represent what friendship and brotherhood is. It's the ups and downs of a relationship. And obviously they've been there in real life for each other, best man at their weddings, but they are representative of what a real relationship is. It's not always hunky dory where you guys are there together, and they're just as much brothers as the Usos were. So having two brothers across the ring together, main eventing WrestleMania, it felt big, didn't feel forced. And I think if you went back, you mentioned 4 years ago that the tag titles would main event WrestleMania, you would say, oh, they're just doing it just to do it. This was the main event of the show.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're splitting hairs. It's 2 nights now. I'm still on this. There's one true main event bandwagon, but to end a night of Mania as the marquee match doesn't get better than that. And I mean, the Bloodline, dude, this whole thing is just so successful, and listen to the crowd. They know they have lightning in a bottle right now. That shit doesn't come around very often. We were in a drought for a long, long time. We haven't seen a story like this affect so many wrestlers. And it's not just Roman and Cody. These guys, there's a lot going on, and I think it's a special time for fans to be able to witness a story like this.
So you mentioned lightning in the bottle. We go to night 2, and it definitely was not paced as well as night 1, but crowd was just as hot. We open up with Brock Lesnar taking on Omos. You mentioned before, I said if it goes 8 minutes, you said it's going to go under 5. It was right there, 4 minutes and 55 seconds. The crowd enjoyed it, and I think it told a really good story in a short period of time. Lesnar playing the underdog, selling his ass off, made Omos look like a monster in a losing effort. Hit the F5. Brock Lesnar's big moves felt important because they were very impressive. The fact that he was able to lift Omos, who's a shoot giant. I thought it did its job, but it was another example of the crowd making something that, if this was on Raw, would have felt like it was garbage, but the crowd's reactions told a better story.
Yeah, and this is a match too where I bet live it was so much better than it was on TV.
100%. Yeah,
and props to Brock. Dude sells his ass off. This is one of the rare opportunities where he's the little guy in the match, which made it compelling. When they were in there. And what better career to have than Brock Lesnar? Guy opens Mania, jumps on a plane. He's in Saskatchewan with Sable, chilling by the end of the night. Come on.
And we have the Fatal 4-Way Tag Team match. This was another WrestleMania showcase. Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler defeated Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez, Natalya and Shotzi in her WrestleMania debut, and Chelsea Green and Sonya Deville. Match went 8 minutes and 21 seconds. Nothing memorable. Ronda clearly wasn't ready to be out there. She's hurt. Shayna apparently wasn't actually hurt. The limping was selling. How the mighty have fallen with Ronda Rousey. She went from main eventing WrestleMania as the champion going in there, and this match was just there. Wasn't a huge fan, but I guess did its job for what it wanted to do, get people on the card and give them something to do, I guess, right?
Yeah, it was whatever. I thought Chelsea Green really took the opportunity to set herself apart from a gear perspective. I thought she popped, she stood out from the rest, and that's about where it ended for me.
The next match was the match I was looking forward to over the course of 2 nights. It was Gunther defending his IC title against Drew McIntyre and Sheamus. He got the win in 16 minutes and 36 seconds. This match took a little bit to get going, but once it got going, the crowd was eating out of the palm of their hands. We mentioned strong style of a guy like Shibata, but this was in the spirit of things like this, where Drew and Sheamus and Gunther were just beating the shit out of each other. Some great high spots with, the Gunther splash. We've got the Celtic cross off the top of or white noise off the top rope, heavy hitting slaps and chops and everything you can want from these matches. This was very akin to the Clash of the Castle match that we had between Gunther and Sheamus. Cut from the same cloth. These guys are making the IC title feel important again. You have to imagine Sheamus is going to get the IC title somewhere down the line. The announcers are making it clear he's never had the IC title. It's the one thing holding him back from winning all the championships in WWE. This might have been the perfect opportunity to take the title off of Gunther because he could have pinned Drew. But I think Gunther is ready and set to be the biggest challenger to Cody's title in the summer. I think eventually, once they get past 1,000 days, which is in 40-something days, they take the title off of Roman, put it on Cody. Gunther is ready and waiting as a formidable challenger across Europe, and Money in the Bank's in London. You could have a big money match between Gunther and Cody. But for right now, the IC title stays on his waist, and he's doing a great job of renovating it to make it feel like maybe it's as important as it's ever felt, which is insane to say.
No, they've put it back on a prestigious pedestal, and Gunther's crushing it, putting on great matches. I think a lot of people I was hearing people say that Sheamus was a possibility just because he had never won that IC title, and they were wrapping that story into this match. I thought this was Gunther's all day long. The story wasn't there for me enough to justify pulling this title off of him. It just wasn't. And you're going to roll this guy into the world title picture at some point, and he is going to be a true threat to anyone. And I think Triple H loves this guy. He's going to push him to the moon. I love this guy. I would say he's in my top 10 currently wrestling. I love Gunther. So
also shows you as they build towards the future of the stars. Look at the guys at the top of the card, and Gunther's not quite there, but he's close. Guys that have a long legacy of wrestling on the indies and figuring out ways to get some experience under their belt. Sammy, KO, Gunther, even Cody. Although Cody came through the PC, he's a guy who really cut his teeth on the indies after the run. That's where he really got his legacy behind them. So a guy like Gunther, it's amazing to see where he was when he first signed. He was in WWE UK, and everyone's like, oh, he's just this hard-hitting guy. They're going to misuse him, and he's being presented in such a great way.
Yeah, it goes to show you, I've always thought that no matter, even in NXT UK, when he came out, and I believe he beat Pete Dunne for the title. I think Pete Dunne held the title when he won it.
In a sick match, by the way. That was a
sick
great
match. When he came out, just the presentation alone, I was like, this guy's different. This guy's just not another guy. Like, there's something about this guy. And I think a lot of fans see it, and I think Triple H sees it, and we're getting the benefits of that.
Next match here, and it was cut a little bit short due to an injury in the middle of the match, and there's a lot to be said about it. In Hell in a Cell, Edge taking on Finn Balor. He got the win. Edge's entrance was sick, coming out the Slayer and just the presentation.
Man. South of Heaven. Come on. That was awesome.
So good.
So good.
Finn Balor was the demon. Looked a little weird in the daytime, but this was a good match overall. They had to stop the match to stitch Balor up, and I think it was a receipt. for the chair that he drew, and you guys can see it on the screen here. Finn Balor's head completely cracked open. I'm pretty sure they gave him staples in the middle of the ring while Edge was commandeering plunder and putting him in the middle of the ring. He was grabbing ladders and chairs and whatever to take the focus off of Finn Balor. But Finn Balor, if you notice, he threw one of the chairs at Edge's face and it hit him right in his eye, and his eye blew up. So that ladder, he had a little bit more mustard gas on it, where it just hit him right in the head, and it absolutely splattered his head open. And from there, they didn't get to build a little bit further where they wanted. Match still went 18 minutes and 8 seconds, but you could tell they probably wanted to go closer to 25-30. The match definitely felt awkwardly paced, and there was a cool spot with the coup de grace off the platform that they put up there on the Hell in a Cell.
A convenient little platform.
Had me thinking that Finn Balor Dante Martin himself for a second through that table. Good match. I mean, the story was old to me. I wasn't really looking forward as much to the match, but I was looking forward. Edge got my attention by saying he's going to do some crazy things in the match. We never quite got it. We'll always be left wondering what if. Some of the colored weapons came off as cheesy to me. I'm not sure if you felt the same way.
Very cheesy. Very cheesy.
But yeah, it was. It definitely was. It was hurt by this, and I think the rest of the card, as far as timing goes, they had to kill a lot of time because this match didn't fill up the void it thought it would fill.
A lot of TurboTax commercials after this.
Exactly. This match is brought to you by Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
Yeah.
It was good.
Maybe
though.
I'm an asshole, man. I'm the biggest Edge mark. I love Edge. I like Finn Balor too, but Edge's entrance was the best part of this match. Like, this match, I know he got hurt. It threw the pacing of the match off completely. Like, I know that sucks. I know they're just like, damn it. But this, like, the violence in this quote unquote Hell in a Cell match, I get stuff more violent than this on Wednesday nights.
Right.
This is Mania. This is Hell in a Cell at Mania. And it did not feel violent at all to me. It's like I see this pretty regularly on other promotions' weekly TV shows. So I don't know, man. I wasn't a fan of this match. It honestly let me down.
Yeah, I thought we were going to get a ref stoppage like we had the Seth Rollins and Bray in a Hell in a Cell, and I thought people would have been, and they might have been justified in doing it if Finn couldn't go, because we saw the gash he showed on the screen. It's absolutely insane how
brutal
cut open he was, but it shows how far removed from wrestling. The first ever Hell in a Cell between Taker and Shawn Michaels, where the famous picture of Taker throwing Shawn Michaels into the cage with the blood dripping down his face, and even Triple H and Foley in the cage in the Hell in a Cell. It's just not there anymore, which begs the question, why do the Hell in a Cell? If you can't live up to the name, don't do it anymore.
Yeah, just putting a structure around you and bringing out color-coded kendo sticks and chairs doesn't do it for me, man. Like, it didn't live up to the hype. And I think it's very unfair to put it on talent to be like, you're living in the shadow of Mick Foley's Hell in a Cell fall. I think that's unfair. But at the same time, it's like, dude, when you break this Hell in a Cell out, you gotta be, the gimmick doesn't work unless you push the limits. It just doesn't. It doesn't excite me. It almost amplifies the fact that you're not pushing the limits if you don't. The fact that you're in this cage, all eyes are on you. You have to crank it up a little bit. If you don't, it's a letdown. Like, it's expectations of that cage for me.
Yeah.
This isn't the red cage. You brought back the silver cage, the old school. I'm wanting to see some, lay it on the line. And I just felt like it was half-hearted to me. It didn't feel special.
Agreed 100%. Last time we saw Hell in a Cell was Triple H Taker at WrestleMania, and this was not that. And it just speaks to where the product is. They don't want the blood in their screen. I get it. I understand. So then don't do the match at all. Maybe put it on the shelf and retire it until maybe an edgier product circles around again. But we move towards this next match here, and it wasn't really a match. It was supposed to be Shane McMahon returning, taking on The Miz. Snoop Dogg saved the day here. We saw a torn ACL from Shane McMahon on a leapfrog. It was really insane. Probably the most ridiculous WrestleMania moment you'll get ever. We got Snoop Dogg doing a people's elbow. Miz losing twice in 2 nights. Again, former WWE champion, by the way, a Grand Slam champion, losing to Snoop Dogg to his people's elbow. I don't like the Miz, but this was dirty. Like, I don't know. This felt like, holy shit, this dude used to be a main eventer.
But
I guess
what you're gonna get, Ace, is you're gonna get those people hearing you say that are like, yeah, but he's entertaining and he does what he wants. You know, dude. I get being a company guy, but good Lord, this guy is just a lapdog for whatever they want him to do. And I think Miz is actually talented. When he cut that promo on Daniel Bryan on Talking Smack,
yep,
I was like, man, you bring that guy out on Raw or SmackDown and have him cut promos like that in the ring, I'm all in. I thought that's when he was the IC champion. I thought they had a next level heel on their hands. And then you put him in roles like this, I hate to shit on it because Snoop Dogg, like you said, hats off, guy working on the fly. I'm sure the ref gave him the heads up of like, hey, he's really hurt.
The ref was like, people's elbow. The mic was so hot all night, so you could hear everything being
it was hot. You could hear every call in the ring. But yeah, man, Miz, I get being a company guy, and I know, man, you're getting that big payday, and I'm just a kind of pride and legacy over the almighty dollar kind of guy. I get it. You're getting your money, but fuck, this was embarrassing.
Agreed. He might be the worst WWE champion all told at the end of the day, as far as being booked. Like, has any other WWE champion lost to a non-wrestler on TV? I mean, do the math on it. Snoop Dogg ever pin another WWE champion? No.
And he was about to get his ass whipped by Shane McMahon, who's been gone forever. Like, I mean, it's comedy. What Pat Patterson call it? Gaga. That's what this was. Just Gaga.
So the next match here was not Gaga. It was a really good, stellar match between two women. Bianca Belair defeated Asuka to retain the Raw Women's Championship, 15 minutes and 57 seconds. This was a really good match. I wouldn't say it was better than the Rhea and Charlotte match, but that's a high bar to reach. The crowd was pretty quiet in this match. They might have been tired or just trying to get ready for the main event.
Yeah.
But Bianca got the win here. So can't say I'm shocked. I love the Bianca entrance, by the way.
Great entrance from Bianca.
Shout out to the little girl that was able to do the entrance despite losing her mom prior to the show, and she still went on to do it. Bianca just shows the influence Bianca has on the younger generation about, presenting women in a positive way on an athletic scope. And Bianca Belair, I love what she brings. And I went to MSG for a Nick game, and they were advertising for them coming for the house show. And she was all over every billboard, every advertisement. She was front and center, and she's become the face of the women's division. And you mentioned Rhea being, a big star power, but Bianca has a huge star power as far as men and women. She's just, her growth since being in NXT, it's immense. And she's been champion for over a year now, which is, it gets lost in the Roman stuff, but she's been a dominant champion who's done a lot with that title.
No, there was a moment in this match before the bell rang when they were just kind of staring. They were in their corners, and just seeing Bianca in that moment, I'm like, this is the next tier. The Charlotte, Becky, Bayley, Sasha days, those are gone. Like, I just had a realization. Like, I know Charlotte and Bayley and Becky are still active, but they almost feel like they're the old timers still wrestling now. And that's very unfair because I love all three of those women. But Bianca is the prime.
Yep.
She is the one. And she looks like a star. Incredible entrance. I thought the match was good. Not as good as Rhea and Charlotte, but 3-0 at Mania. She has a streak on her hands. I believe she's 3-0 at Mania.
Yep.
But yeah,
she is, and all title matches as well. And we're getting into a landscape now where holding championships from WrestleMania to WrestleMania is becoming sort of the norm. And that was unheard of for a while. That used to be what Hogan used to do on the build, or when Macho did. He held it from WrestleMania 4 to WrestleMania 5. And this is just like Bianca quietly did it. No one got, personally for me, I'm not getting sick of her run. I'm sure there's some clamoring in other spaces where like, oh, I wish Asuka would have won. But
Honestly, dude, I think it's a genius move right now. I know a lot of people are like, man, they're holding the titles too long. And that's how you build marquee stars.
Absolutely.
That's how you build marquee stars. Don't beat people every other pay-per-view cycle. Like, if you let someone hold a title long enough and just keep going through people, that's how you're building your next crop of it people. And they're doing it right now. Roman, the Usos held the titles forever. Bianca's held the title. Like, it's kind of a genius booking move that they went away from.
Yep. So you mentioned Roman Reigns, and this was the main event of the night, bar none. Roman Reigns with Paul Heyman and Solo in his corner, who will play a huge part later in the night, defeated Cody Rhodes to retain the WWE Universal Championship, 35 minutes and 27 seconds. Gotta say, finish aside, whatever you feel about it. Amazing match. This is the first time I felt this level of palpable energy in the arena. And even watching, like I said, I watched with the Remarkable Crew, watching this match, everyone was on the edge of their seat for this star power driven match. It had Hogan Rock energy in Toronto. This matches any match you want to put WrestleMania history as far as energy goes. You could literally cut it in the air as far as the tension built, and it just shows the machine's ability to create stars. Roman Reigns feels larger than life, and Cody Rhodes with the machine behind him feels like the American hero. This felt like the clash of two Marvel superheroes going head to head in live action on your TV screen. Like, I could see why Endeavor wants to pay $9 billion for a product, because you can't get this type of live content anywhere.
Match of the weekend. Story incredible, energy incredible. Roman's on another level. I mean, you can hate on him all you want, you can love him all you want, but the cold hard fucking truth is the guy is the biggest star in pro wrestling. It's not even debatable. With this machine behind you on this type of stage, and then the match itself this is in-ring storytelling at its finest. They definitely went a little near fall heavy, but I didn't have a problem with it.
I'm a big fan of the near fall structure. I like them doing that in big matches.
I liked it. They do bastardize finishes a little bit sometimes. You know,
they did that with Austin, though. How many times did Rock kick out of the stunner? You know
right. No, that's true. It's true. In the big matches, you can get away with that stuff, and I don't have a problem with it. And I know everyone's like, they took the wind out of this place when Roman won. And I absolutely loved it. And I would have put money down. I was bragging in the Pod Foundation group. Cody, AEW is sending an angel to WWE to take down Roman Reigns. I knew it, but this is so much better this way. Like, it's so much better. Cody had that injury. He was gone for a long time. This is where the story begins. This is where the Cody fight to the title begins. Right here. Coming off a loss. Really going through hard times. What's his song say? Hard times breed better men. We're getting ready to see that. I don't think anyone else beats Roman. It's Cody is taking that belt off of him. That's the story we're going to be told. They might go away from each other for a story or two. I'm not convinced this happens at SummerSlam. I think if they do it at SummerSlam, it's kind of bullshit. I think Cody deserves to win this at Mania. I'm not going to be shocked if they try to take this to Mania 40. I really am not. I don't know where they're going with this. Who knows? But I love the fact that everyone thought Cody was going to take it, and they break his heart and they break the fans' heart. And this is storytelling we want, man. I'm all about predictability in your pro wrestling. Sometimes you need that. Sometimes you got to, like you said, Ace, when we were talking about Sami Zayn and Elimination Chamber, we felt that was the zenith of giving it, and it's never going to be to that level again. I can't say that with this. I think this adds to it. I don't think this was the biggest zenith for Cody winning. I think it could get bigger, and that excites me.
Yeah, I definitely see that, but to me, I don't know. I think timing is so important to telling a story. And again, I'll I'll let the rest of the story be told before I cast any negative feelings towards it. But I think this was the moment that Cody Rhodes should have been crowned, especially since they passed on the Sammy situation. They said, hey, we're not going to do the Sammy thing in Montreal because we can't take that away from Cody. But then we're left with both guys left holding the bag. And of course, go back, and I think what they did with Sammy and KO was a great consolation prize. The Cody thing, I think at this point, you have to wait till 40. You have to, because
you have to.
Anything that is short of a WrestleMania moment, because if they build it up that Roman is another year of dominant champ, which I'm here for. If it's not going to be Cody, I'd rather it be Roman for the rest of the year. And at that point, give him another 365 on top of the 945, whatever the math is, that we're going to be approaching 1,300 days. No, yeah, it would be like 1,300 days going into Philly. But the thing is, you risk here is there is a sense of trust between Booker and fan.
100%.
That they're going to get at the end of the day. You'll eventually, if you stay with the story, you'll feel good about yourself, just like any good movie. And not every good movie ends with a good ending, but pro wrestling is built on the hero conquering evil. And when you break that trust, and WWE's done it time and time again, that's what drove a lot of fans away with the Cena stuff, Triple H's Reign of Terror. They drove a lot of fans away. And I think when you break it, it's easy for people to lose interest. And I'm not saying that. As I mentioned, fandom's at an all-time high as far as viewership goes. People are very invested in the product. They love Cody Rhodes. But you had an opportunity to have this title on house shows from week to week and bring it to live events. If Roman is really taking a break, and that could have been all just, discourse to get people to feel it's going a certain way, and then Roman will actually be on TV for big pay-per-views. Don't know if he's been on Raw tonight. But at this point, winning at SummerSlam would feel hollow. I think at this point, a year from now in Philly is that could be bigger than this, and exhibiting some patience as fans. I think that's what we have to do. And to me, watching this match, the moment that was created with Cody, I wanted it so bad for him. I wanted it for myself.
I did too, man. I did too.
It took the air out of the building, of course. And we're used to this as wrestling fans. How many times have we seen this? But this, to me, I guarantee you, if Vince wasn't back in that chair, it wouldn't have happened. And I think it's for a future book with Paul Levesque and Vince McMahon writing a book. But I think this finish was changed, and we've seen this time and time again. This was a Vince booked finish, no doubt in my mind. We've seen this finish 1,000 times. I would have been okay with the Roman win even more if they would have done something different. But a guy that Cody just beat on Raw, Solo Sikoa, came back, who was thrown out from ringside.
I hate that.
That was your demise. They couldn't
the
have come
finish
up with something
of
more creative.
They've done this finish so much with the Usos coming down, and that was the structure. I didn't have a problem with Cody getting beat as much as I had the way they booked the finish. I'm like, it is a lazy way. I don't know if Vince switched it, but hey, I could totally see that, because it's like, hey man, we're about to announce a major sell with Endeavor tomorrow. We got to have Roman as our champ. I know they've came out and said that's not the case, but I could see that playing a part in it. They're not going to say that publicly. You're right, man. WWE, I think WWE is known for, a lot of times they pull the trigger late.
Mm-hmm.
Like they miss it, and then a couple months later they pull the trigger. That's kind of been their MO on a lot of things. But look, dude, when this happened, me and Sneed were watching it together. I was quiet. I didn't say anything. I was pissed. I was so hot about this at first. Like, I'm thinking in my head, Seth Phelps and Sheena are going wild right now, and it is lighting my ass on fire, because I wanted to rub it in Seth's face so bad, but he was the only guy in our group that was really calling it, and all the love in the world for Seth calling it. I know he had the night of his life, but I was quiet, and the more and more I sat and thought about it, I'm just like, you know what? If this story is continuing, and it's a long story, and it's not just, hey, let's wrap it up at SummerSlam. If they are going to tell a long story with this, I'm along for the ride. I don't have a problem with it. I do think the table was set. The table was set for Cody. You had that opportunity. You better make it better. You know what I mean? Like, it was there. So if you didn't pull the trigger now, you better make it better when you do pull the trigger, or it's going to be like a wasted opportunity.
Yeah, and I think Cody is that guy who's next, and you guys did on the debate and talked about the one that dropped today on audio and on Sunday night with the video. You guys talk about, will Cody be the next legacy guy? And I think he will be, as far as a short period of time. I think the Bret Hart comparison is a good comparison, because I think we'll probably get 5 years of him in the top of the card. But right now, this is Roman's time to shine. And if he's willing to continue to be active in the way that he has been, he has a lighter schedule, but the titles are more meaningful than ever. We talk about the Intercontinental title, the tag titles, the Women's Championship, but nothing's more meaningful than the WWE Universal Undisputed Championship, however you want to say it. These combined belts have a lineage and legacy that it comes from important roots where guys have long reigns. The Bruno Sammartinos, the Hulk Hogan's, the Bob Backlunds, the Pedro Moraleses, those guys held the titles for a long period of time. And for so long, through our early fandom and throughout even a couple of years ago, the titles were just passed around. And that was a calling card of the Attitude Era, where you have a guy held the title for 38 days and then he drops the title. Gone are those days. The titles have meaning again. They're not just awarding them to people because it's the right thing to do. Personally, I feel like Cody, the story was right to give it to him. I'm not saying he's more deserving or anything like that. I think the time was right to give it to him. But if you follow the two paths, if you like pick your own path, and the story is Cody getting this culmination at WrestleMania 40, that could be huge. But I hope the time in between, I don't want a time that the titles are absent from TV. They really could benefit by having two titles. Like, if they really hamstrung themselves at WrestleMania 38, combining them up with Lesnar and Roman, I think that would have been better just to have one, because you have a lot more wiggle room. Roman could hold that Universal title for the next 5 years. It wouldn't matter. But the fact you have both locked up and you need to pin Roman to get it off of him, they really have themselves in a hole here, because they could totally use Seth Rollins having the WWE title over on Raw, while SmackDown continues to have the Universal Championship. But the titles mean more than ever. So whoever does beat Roman, and I hope for everybody's sake, it's not The Rock. I hope it's someone that will really benefit from the rub. It can't be something like that.
That Endeavor influence might get The Rock on those titles. You never know, man.
I'm okay with the finish. I'm mad personally, and a piece of that is because I am a Cody fan, and I walked away like, okay, we got a feel good moment the night before.
I'm mad too.
I was very mad, but I'm willing to watch this. I mean, because the Roman stuff has been absolutely epic for the last more than a year and a half. It's been amazing.
And they screw a lot of things up, but they've handled the bloodline pretty well. And I'm with you. I'm mad. Do you know how much ammo this would have gave me to talk shit to other people? God, man, AEW. They built this guy in AEW, and he goes and beats Roman Reigns. It would have been awesome. I could have run my mouth so much. But I don't know, man. Like, I'm kind of enjoying it. I think you can't pull the trigger too early. Let it ride. And I'll say this, because there's a lot of people saying this, and I vehemently disagree with this. There's people saying Jey Uso should be the one to take the title from Roman. There's people saying Seth Rollins should take the title from Roman. Stop with that shit. I get it. Jey started the story with Roman. I get it. I don't care. That's not making a main event star. The guy's in your company. He doesn't need that push. He's there. Make a new guy. Make a new guy. And if you're not, and if you haven't had the ability to build a young guy to take over Roman, which you didn't, you went outside of your company to hire someone else to bring in. If you're not going to build a young guy to beat Roman and make that next new guy, give it to Cody Rhodes. It only makes sense. That elevates him to the top of the card. Seth doesn't need it. I know he has Roman's number, but what does Seth Rollins beating Roman do for you? Jack shit. It doesn't do anything. You need another guy in that upper echelon who is solidified. I know Cody's up there, but he needs to be solidified. Seth has held the title. Roman's holding the title. Cody's never held that belt. We need to solidify him. I just don't agree with the Jey or Seth beating Roman stories. I think that would be such a letdown to me.
Yeah, agreed. And I think at this point, let the story be told. And I think Cody will be just fine as long as they continue to present them the way they have been presenting them. And why not? Let's get to WrestleMania 40. How amazing would this feel for Cody to get his moment in Philadelphia? I mean, the birth of America, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. It speaks for itself.
Philadelphia freedom, baby.
Yeah.
Philadelphia freedom. I love it.
Just last thing I'll say is for this match, and again, go back and watch it if you have not watched it. This shows just the star power that these guys bring. I can't remember the last time I was as excited for a main event WWE match where it felt like, holy shit, these guys are finally going to touch in the ring. And that speaks volumes about how they've been booking stuff. And, kudos to the team there at WWE and Paul Levesque and everyone involved. They came from a spot where main events felt hollow. They didn't feel like they meant anything. Titles feel like they mean something. Stars feel like they're important again. They feel larger than life. And that speaks volumes of where the product is going. And WWE is in a good spot right now.
Very good spot. Last thing I'll say, just to piggyback off of what you just said, Ace, I think this match gave me feelings of Hogan Warrior at 6. It had that level of weight to it. Mm-hmm. And just a little dig I got to throw in. Cody Rhodes gave Roman Reigns his greatest WrestleMania match. It takes two to tango. What other match was better than that match that Roman's had at Mania? For me, storyline wise, weight of the situation, this match felt bigger, more important, more eyes on it, more at stake. I love the Lesnar-Roman match at 31 when Seth Rollins cashed in, but the reason I love that match so much is the Seth Rollins cash in.
Yeah.
But as far as just the match itself and the spectacle of it, I don't think Roman's ever had a match like he had at this Mania.
Or ever.
Ever. No,
might be his best match ever. 35 minutes of really good storytelling. It didn't get they could have won another 15, and I think it would have captivated everybody.
It was really good. It was really, really, really good.
All right, so let's get into story number 4. We're going to go through these pretty quick. I have highlighted matches I want you guys to check out from Impact, New Japan, GCW, and NXT. So so GCW collective highlights. We have 5-day tour in California. We also have the Thursday night Impact New Japan show. So we'll start with the main event of the Multiverse United show. That was Thursday night in LA. It had stars from New Japan Pro Wrestling. Impact was the main event. Hiroshi Tanahashi, as we mentioned before, he was live and in action at Ring of Honor. He defeated Speedball Mike Bailey. Double duty 2 nights in a row. 46-year-old Tanahashi going out there and doing work. Some other good matches on here. Go out and check it out. It's worth the $24 to purchase on Fight TV or Bleacher Report. The Tag Team Championship match was probably the second best match of the night. Chris Bay and Ace Austin defeated the Motor City Machine Guns.
I love that tag team.
And TMDK retained the titles. A fun night, understated because there was so much going on the weekend, but it's worth checking out if you have some free time now that everything's sort of calmed down. It's available on demand. Go check it out.
Yeah, it was fun, guys. We say it a lot on here, I feel like, but really keep your eye on Speedball. That dude is secretly having one of the best careers on the independents and Impact.
Yeah.
Dude is doing phenomenal work. Speedball's killing it.
All right, so the GCW collective, there was a lot to unpack here, and I've literally watched all of it, so I'm here to tell you that it was a lot of good stuff. Didn't have as much buzz as it usually did, but we opened up with Josh Barnett's Bloodsport on the 30th. Some great matches, but most notably, John Moxley defeating Alex Coughlin. This is a no-ring style shoot matches that Josh Barnett has coined here. Really cool aesthetic, feels different, and to me, this was probably the highlight of the GCW collective, aside from the spring break show. But we also got Kota Ibushi defeated the aforementioned Speedball Mike Bailey. Other good stuff on the card. But the Ibushi Mike Bailey match might have been, as far as GCW matches go, might have been match of the weekend. But we'll talk about another one in a second. Those guys are up there. And Speedball, as you mentioned, is just absolutely killing it. Whether he's in Impact, GCW, I fully expect him to be on a really big stage very, very soon. He's a underutilized guy that should be on a bigger stage, and I don't want to take him away from Impact and GCW.
He has to work on. The only thing that's keeping him out of the big companies, I feel like, is character work. Like, because he's not that he doesn't have it. I don't know if he has it. He just doesn't get the opportunity to really show like what you would need to get over with fans in a WWE or an AEW. You got to be able to hit that level. He puts on phenomenal matches. I mean, the guy's crushing it, but you got to have that connection, that it factor. That's the one thing I'm not going to say he doesn't have it. I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I mean, he reminds me of like a mix of RVD and like Chris Benoit, where like those guys didn't really have as much to get. I mean, we saw that side of RVD
with a little bit
out.
of Steve Blackman sprinkled in there.
I love him. So we also had GCW versus DDT, and this was just a combination show. So highlights of this: Eddie Kingston was on this card, teaming with Jun Akiyama, taking on Damnation TA, which is Daisuke Sasaki and Cannon. It was a good night of wrestling. Again, lost in sort of everything going on here. Was Eddie Kingston involved in a GCW show? Pretty damn cool.
Very cool. Very cool.
GCW for the Culture, which was the 30th. This was an awesome night of wrestling, and I love what GCW does with For the Culture. This was main evented with Trish Adora and Calvin Tankman for the Pan-African World Diaspora Wrestling World title. Trish Adora retained her championship. Other people on this card: Brian Keith took on Too Cold Scorpio and got the win. Myron Reed from MLW took on Kevin Knight and Man Like the Rice to take on the Black Wrestlers Matter title, which was a good match as well. Billy Dixon took on Willie Mack. So again, check it out. If you have the Fight Pass, you might as well check it out. You have all this access to the GCW.
Yeah,
stuff.
A lot of good stuff on there. Darius Carter. I think he's a young up and comer, fun to watch. I'm a huge Brian Keith fan. He just got crowned, I believe today or yesterday. Brian Keith, longest reigning New Texas Pro champion, just beat out Mysterious Q. So he's been killing it.
Awesome. And we also have Jimmy Lloyd's Degeneration L. So this was on the 31st. Some good names on here. Sawyer Wreck took on Bobby Orlando from Creative Pro Wrestling and from my area over here. Really good match. Starboy Charlie took on Alec Price. From the Limitless area and also from Wrestling Open. Jimmy Lloyd took on Bodie Young Prodigy.
Cole Radrick.
Titus Alexander. Good match. And this was, again, earlier in the day. Lost in a lot of what was going on, but worth checking out if you have some free time. Check it out. And again, this used to cost for a giant amount of not money, but you had to pay. What was it, like $50 for the whole weekend? Now you get it for just
dude. I think last year it was like $120 or so.
Oh, really? I guess
there was a big price point on it.
Wow. And then this was the highlight of my GCW weekend, and it was the Joey Janela Spring Break, and it always is a lot of fun. This was main evented by Kota Ibushi and Joey Janela. This was a great match between two absolute legends, and Kota being in the States was a lot of fun. And there was a lot of conversation about him being able to go at full length because of his shoulder injury. So yeah, he looked not worse for wear at all, went in there and had a great match. I thought this was the better match, the Janela match, surprisingly, because I thought the Speedball match would be better, but this had a bigger feel at Spring Break, especially with Joey Janela in there in his own event. But the other match I mentioned before, Vikingo took on Speedball Mike Bailey. This was absolutely epic. And this was Vikingo double duty in the same night. This was the same night as Ring of Honor, Supercard of Honor. Traveled all the way back to the GCW show, took him on, and really, really good match. Vikingo is absolutely epic.
Dude's in a special place right now. I feel like he's in that zone. He's in that zone right before you break. You know, like we're witnessing a superstar. Vikingo's special, man. He's killing it.
And the last two shows from GCW was Emo Fight 4-1. This was really late at night. So after Spring Break, Spring Break ended at about like 2:30 a.m. And then Emo Fight took hold at 3. So it started midnight local time in LA. Some good matches here, highlighted by Jimmy Jacobs defeating Kevin Blackwood. And we had Moonlight Express defeating Los Macizos, Ciclope, and Miedo Extremo, and Wasted Youth. Dylan McKay and Marcus Mathers doing some good things over in the Indies and also in GCW. So that was a good night of wrestling as well.
Yeah, and we also, we forgot to mention East West Express winning those tag straps, man.
That is right. I totally forgot. That was the highlight of my weekend, obviously, with GCW. They did actually finally get the win. We have the picture here. Defeated Motor City Machine Guns in a really, really good match. A long time coming. They've been branded them as a tag team. And I love what Nick Wayne and Jordan Oliver have been doing. Jordan Oliver won the JCW championship. Nick Wayne is ready to get to AEW and be contributed on a big stage, but awesome to see them crowned in GCW. Well
I
deserved.
love the story of these two guys, two young guys coming up in the indies. Jordan Oliver's been cutting his teeth in GCW a little bit longer than Nick Wayne. Those guys had some matches together. They've been crushing it on singles, having really special matches. I mean, we had Nick Wayne tearing it up with Will Ospreay in Rhode Island last year. So, I mean, they've been doing a lot of good matches, but I like this combo of them. I think it elevates the tag division a little bit. We go away from, Los Macizos had that good run. We had RIP. We had the Briscoes with the GCW title. We had Second Gear Crew, Bussy, a lot of people. I would like to see these kids kind of get a good little run with it.
Absolutely. And then on the last night of the weekend was the GCW The World on Lucha. This was the Gringo Loco presentation. He obviously main event to the Falls Count Anywhere match, took on Psycho Clown from AAA Lore.
Great. I
Really,
love
really
Gringo. I love Psycho Clown. That was a fun one.
very fun. And I love the Lucha flair for this match. And if you're into Lucha Libre, GCW always brings that aesthetic to all of their shows, but this was highlighting all of it. We had Commander was involved. He teamed with Aramis and Rey Oris. They defeated Black Taurus, Latigo, and Arez. The chemistry that these guys have, they've all worked in different combinations for the 6-man tags. And some of the conversations with Commander, and we're saying it like that now because he came out and said that he wants his name to be pronounced Commander, which is interesting because he made it clear on the ROH commentary. And you know that Coleman and Riccaboni do their research. So Commander is his name. That's what we're going to call him. And anyway, so Meltzer was talking about how the match he had with Vikingo was sort of a coming out party for him because he had never really put together a meaningful singles program because he's always been involved in either these 6-mans, these scrambles all together. So
right.
The fact that he had such a good match with Vikingo at the ROH show showed a lot of trust that Tony Khan had in him, but obviously he showed out. But this is where he thrives right here. These 6-man scramble matches, 6-man tags where there's a lot of chaos and it feels like things are coming out of control. And there he is with the rope walk, all that stuff that he really shined here. But the scramble match that opened the show with Jack Cartwheel taking on Bobby Flacco, Jimmy Lloyd, Mago, Shane Mercer, and Willie Mack. I love Willie Mack, dude. Willie Mack is absolutely fantastic. I love everything he brings to the table.
Awesome.
Very, very good. Like I said, it's like Junkyard Dog if you gave him like a lucha moveset. Love it.
Yeah, and a vibe, man. Willie has a vibe. When he was in Impact, kind of aligning himself with Rich Swann a little bit, they killed it. They were highly entertaining. And dude, those scrambles, they're some of my favorite matches in GCW. And I think you named off some names that talk about Commander making an impression in those matches. Jack Cartwheel makes an impression in those matches. Shane Mercer, dude, makes an impression in those matches with his feats of strength. Like there are a lot of guys who have kind of Gringo Loco, like a lot of guys in those matches have kind of made their name for GCW and branched out. And I think that's a good place for any guy in those matches. It's kind of your play. It's your match to show what you got.
Yeah, AEW uses that formula, these party matches. I think they use it with Sting and Darby a lot, where it's just play the hits, really quick, a quick little 30-minute set list for a band. But this is like in the equivalent of, a quick 11-minute match where it's just like Sting does the big high spot, Darby does something crazy and move. There's no time for people to get bored. That's like these matches. And the Lucha match was, that whole card was absolutely fun. If you're looking for a cool introduction into Lucha, GCW might be that nice gateway drug for you to enjoy it.
Absolutely.
All right, let's get into quick hitters. And we are not going to go into all the quick hitters, but we do have some important stories to bring you guys.
Yeah, just quick Gallus for NXT Stand and Deliver. Good show. Gallus won the tag titles. Carmelo beat Braun Breaker, which I think is signaling. I think we'll see Braun Breaker tonight. We're recording this. He may have came out on Raw. Who knows? Gallus won tag titles. Indy Hartwell in that ladder match. And then, of course, Carmelo taking home the gold. It was a pretty entertaining night. And I hear that the, what's their name? The Schism.
Yes.
They are, they're wanting their release from WWE. And that makes me very excited because they used to be called the Grizzled Young Vets, the tag team in there. I love that tag team. I hope they land somewhere like ROH would be great.
Oh, 100%.
But yeah, let's get into quick hitters.
Quick hitters.
All right, so for quick hitters, we're going to start with the story that would headline any week, but it's one that falls in the quick hitters because it's during WrestleMania week and a week that WWE was sold. So Mox and Punk drama. We had Mox appearing on the Renee Paquette show where he unpacked a lot of the drama. He was pretty open and honest, more so than I thought that he would be. Timing was right because I think he was going on there to talk about the Hangman match, but I guess they couldn't ignore the elephant in the room. They had to discuss the Punk stuff. I'll let you take the lead here, but John Moxley didn't pull any punches, really.
He didn't pull any punches. We have a clip. Let's check out what Mox had to say on Sessions.
Is there anything that you would like to address with all the stuff that has kind of unfolded in the last couple of days?
No.
Okay.
Because nothing has unfolded. It's fucking annoying that, like, just because somebody said some stupid shit on social media, like, that's not news. But it is, and it ends up being a thing. Like, it's fucking annoying. Like, but now I don't want to get dragged into this dumb shit.
Yeah.
I could fucking unload on a lot of fucking people right now. And when I start getting dragged into this shit, it tempts me to do that. But I'm not going to fucking sink to that level because it's fucking lame. The entire summer, I was not under contract. No contract. Free agent. I could have walked into SummerSlam that night with the AEW fucking belt if I had been so inclined. Nobody knew that because I don't put my shit out there in the world and let everybody know every fucking thing about my business, you know? The night in, what's his dick's talking about, it was in Minneapolis. It was the night he came back and was hopping around on one foot and all that and bumping around Inner Circle or whatever after me and Jericho wrestled in a badass match, by the way. I basically don't work there for all intents and purposes. I don't even work here. Tony is not my boss. I don't even have to be in this room. I don't have to do shit. So even me being in this room and offering and agreeing to a storyline that puts you over at the pay-per-view, if anything, I'm bending over backwards for Tony and for this dude and for the company and everybody. Because I didn't have to. I didn't have to do shit.
Right.
If anything, I was bending over backwards.
Never mentioned Punk by name, by the way. Never once.
Not once.
What's his dick? That's what I'm going to call him.
What's his dick? That's all he gets. Just a real quick comment I wanted to get from you, Ace. Like, when you hear that, so Punk's claim is that he didn't want to lose to Punk. Mox's rebuttal is, dude, I wasn't even signed to the company and I still lost to you. Whose side you taking in that?
I mean, I've been pretty consistent with this. I am not a Punk guy anymore, but John Moxley has no reason.
Because he blocked you, dude. Quit hating.
He blocked me because I talk shit on here because he's thin-skinned and, fragile mind, fragile body, whatever John Moxley said. But
that's good. That's a good pull.
I love John Moxley, and I just think that everything that Moxley has done has been consistent with showing that he has AEW's best interest in mind. So, yes, I think at the end of the day, the program had Punk going over. It really did. That was always the plan at All Out, for him to go over and win the title. How they got there, he didn't agree with, but sometimes you don't agree with all of the things that go into a story. But if you're getting put over at the end of the pay-per-view, where a guy like John Moxley, who's been putting his heart and soul, we talked about it, rinse, repeat. We can talk about how he invested himself in a company that was not established. He took a risk, and Punk benefited financially from it. I take Moxley's side, bar none.
I respect that. I think that Punk being in the company would be cool if everyone could play nice and work together, but Moxley's my type of guy, man. He doesn't put his shit on Front Street. He's a company guy, puts his head down. He's there when you need him. I love Moxley, so I'm with Moxley in this.
And I love what Moxley, the message he was driving. Let's talk about the wrestling happening on screen. He's like, I love what happened with Vikingo and Omega.
Right.
Let's talk about that on a weekly basis, not this stupid high school drama.
Right, and he was putting over the Elite too, man. Like, it just... I feel like Mox is a dude, if he grew up in my neighborhood, I'd probably be hanging out with that guy. I like the way he is. And I think he's a straight shooter. I don't think there's much bullshit with Mox. So when he says someone's a cool dude, when he's talking about the Young Bucks in the back, I kind of take him as face value. And if you're not getting along with Moxley, I'm like, something's wrong here.
So we mentioned CM Punk before, and apparently his return to AEW was agreed on in principle before the Instagram outburst. So according to Meltzer on the Wrestling Observer newsletter, they were setting up the switch for All Out from the Now Arena to the Allstate Arena for the bigger people. But now at this point, Punk's recent transgressions have people second guessing if he can come back. I'm not writing it off completely. I think there's still a chance we see him back in AEW because time does heal all wounds, and you don't have to be best friends to work together. But it definitely put another roadblock in place where it didn't have to be.
He's coming back. Like when it first happened, I was screaming at, why? No, you were almost back. But seeing the way people are responding, I think he's coming back. And since we're on Punk, we can go ahead and this is a short little clip, but they asked Chris Jericho, he was on the Mark Madden podcast, and they asked him, hey, you're not on the Christmas list of CM Punk. And Jericho, the person who was called a stooge in Punk's little IG story outburst, had a response.
Do you think CM Punk's ever going to be back? I don't suspect you're on each other's Christmas card list.
I'm not, but I wasn't on Scott Hall's Christmas card list, or I wasn't on, Eric Bischoff's Christmas card list, or I wasn't on this, you don't have to be best friends to coexist. So to me, that's not really my wheelhouse. I'm not in charge of that. I'm sure there'll be some answers to that pretty quickly, I would assume, either way. But to us, AEW is going to thrive and survive with or without him. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
I love that he puts it on Punk. Dude, we're here. We're going to make it without you. And what do you think of Jericho's comments, Ace? Just real quick.
It speaks to wrestling history. And, obviously this has happened over time. And of course, social media puts things in a different perspective, but there's been people that have worked together successfully that got along, and things have been worse.
100%.
We've seen Bruiser Brody get stabbed to death in Puerto Rico because of things going on. So like wrestling's always been this way. It's just a little bit more accessible where things don't happen as behind the scenes, because emotionally driven responses can happen on social media. And whether it's up for 52 seconds and someone screenshots it or not, some of these other guys in the past, if they had access to a large sum of people to listen to what they're having to say, they would have done it.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. Man up, put your shit aside, and let's make some money and do some business. And just real quick, since we're on the Punk thing, him and FTR, Los Angeles, FTR was there, I guess, for the Ring of Honor stuff and the WrestleCon, and they had the FTR podcast live that Mike Bellcast, our very own Shot of Nostalgia, 7 p.m. on Friday. Mike Bellcaster was there live for it. Shared some tequila with Dax and Cash. Well, they met up with Punk in the gym and shared some pictures. So this stuff's not going away, Ace. I know as much as we want to just move on from it, I feel like we can't escape this story. Every week there's something about Punk.
Yeah. So, I mean, he obviously has allies in the locker room, not just FTR. People want him back. So there'll be a soft landing spot for him to kind of take hold in his little nook of the locker room if he wants to come back. It's not like everybody hates him, but there's a large portion of people that would be a fan if he didn't come back. But what's best for business is him to come in, shut his mouth, do business, and work with other guys, because when he was in the ring and he was selling merchandise, that was good for AEW.
Yes. Yes.
All right. So we also, just quickly going through here, we have Cody talking about, well, let's go with the Rick Steiner thing. Rick Steiner, Giselle Shaw incident. We're not going to get too deep into this, but WrestleCon, as you mentioned before, was happening this weekend for WrestleMania. Rick Steiner saying some hateful things towards Giselle Shaw being a transgender woman. Rick Steiner was confronted. Multiple witnesses heard him say these things. He's now been banned from WrestleCon. My question to you really has to do with his son, Braun Breaker. Do you think this affects his push going forward because Rick Steiner saying these things in public? And I don't know, Jericho backed up Giselle Shaw as well, saying that Rick Steiner's always been a bully and a dick. So horrible things to hear. I mean, you hate to hear some of the guys you looked up to growing up being assholes. And good for Giselle Shaw speaking up on the issue, and she felt uncomfortable, but sucks. I mean, I feel bad for Giselle having to deal with this shit on an autograph signing. She is an Impact star. She shouldn't be dealing with this stuff.
Yeah, it doesn't shock me dealing with some old school wrestler doing that. It does kind of shock me. I thought Rick was always kind of the strong silent type, but it at the same time, Scott Steiner mouthing off a little bit. I'm not too surprised. I don't think it hurts Braun Breaker at all, for the simple fact I don't see Endeavor or WWE cracking down on this kid. Like, I just don't. Not to say they should or they shouldn't. I just don't see. Should they? Should he get punished for what his dad did?
I don't think so at all.
I don't think so at all. That has nothing to do with him. I have family members in my family right now that say horrible shit. I would never support or back what they say. I don't think he should be punished for his dad. I don't think they will.
It's the one silver lining of he didn't get the Steiner named. Everyone's like, oh, that sucks. He should have been Braun Steiner. And this might be the benefit true. After all.
That's true, man. If he was Rex Steiner, like he was going with for a while, he might be in some hot water here.
Absolutely. And you know what? All the love to Giselle Shaw, and, donate to your local people that do good things in your community, because obviously there's still closed-minded people out in the world. And Rick Steiner, obviously is one of them, and in a public space, feeling like he could put someone on blast. Not
my
cool.
thing. It's like, dude, he's from another time. I get that. Like, shut the fuck up, man. Who's going to say that?
He was in the crowd. He was in the crowd heckling her, which is like, bizarre because she thought it was a fan that she came out and tried to figure out who it was, and it wound up being fucking Rick Steiner. What are we talking? Really?
And what a fucking tone deaf dude. Like, you want to believe that hateful shit at home, but to go out and say it in public, what a fucking moron. Like, they are going to come after you. It just shows, like, old timers, man. They say some wild shit that just has no place in today's society, and you're going to get fucking owned for it. You're just going to get owned for it, dude, and you should be.
100%. And moving on here, we have the AEW All Access debut. So some notes from the Wrestling Observer newsletter. They talked about some of the things in there, like the Adam Cole and Britt Baker stuff. Adam Cole come back from injury. 328,000 viewers. TNT, TBS, the whole network of family is pretty happy with how it did. Obviously, they'd like a little bit more of a coasting number from the Dynamite lead-in, and it would do better than anything else in that spot. It's done better than the slap fighting. It did better than some of the other shows, movies, and things like that, but it's a number they can grow from, but I'm sure they're not panicking.
Did you watch it?
I watched the first 10 minutes and then I turned it off because I was watching what we were doing here.
I saw the first 10 to 15, but I was prepping for the flagship and I'm saving it's on the DVR. I'm saving it because Cassie, my girlfriend, wants to watch it with me. And what I saw, I liked. What I saw, I did see positives in getting people attached to these stars. So it didn't feel like Roads to the Top. It felt more docu-sports drama, which I enjoy, but we'll see how it goes.
So we have a video clip for this one, but this is Seth Rollins talking about Cody Rhodes' push, and this is blurring that line between work and shoot, but seems a lot of this is his real feelings coming out in the Daniel Cormier ESPN show that Rollins appeared on earlier in the week.
Yeah, here's Rollins.
Look, the bottom line is I feel, based on my body of work and what I've contributed to this company over the course of the last decade, really, I should be in that position, right? I'm the one who has held it down while he drifted off and went and did his own thing. Respect to him for that. Great. He drifted off, did his own thing. I'm the one who held it down. When everybody got hurt or did something else or went off or took part-time schedules or wanted less and wanted to do less and ask for more or wanted to go somewhere else because they weren't happy. You don't think there's been plenty of times when I haven't been happy or plenty of times when I haven't felt like I've been on the short end of the stick? And there's tons of stories I could tell about that, but I don't. I keep it to myself. I put my head down. I work hard. I vouch for this company. I vouch for this place. And I feel like what he's getting is not I'm just not entirely comfortable with it.
Yeah.
And I don't know any other way to put it than that.
Yeah.
And I think that just creates some natural friction between the two of us. And so, when tempers flare, you know how it goes sometimes. So yeah, there's a little truth to that, but I can't get into too many details. But there's some level of mutual respect there has to be in this industry, but at the same time, there's animosity as well.
Yeah. And I think honestly that the reason he's believable is because of the work you guys did since his return back to WWE.
It takes two to tango.
It does take two to tango, and you're one of the best at it, my brother.
I think there's a lot of truth in that, Ace.
He didn't seem like he's playing Seth Rollins' character.
No,
that was
I
Colby
think-
Lopez going at him.
I think there's a lot of truth in that, but I do think there's a tiny little undercurrent, low hum of a work in the future. I think Seth Rollins versus Cody Rhodes, when Cody Rhodes finally takes that title off of Roman Reigns, there's big money in that. But I do think, honestly, most of that is legitimate. I think that's true shit being said.
Yeah, and they were referencing that almost fist fight they had in the back, and shows the different sort of cultures in the AEW locker room and the WWE locker room. That just got swept under the rug.
Yeah.
Locker room handled it. AEW blew up into a mass chaotic situation where, just shows two different schools of thought.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, let's get into Dave's raves. Just a quick one because he didn't put anything in the newsletter. I think he was distracted by WrestleMania week, but we have our match of the week.
Yeah, he didn't even go to Mania this year.
Yeah, what was
Come
he
on,
doing?
Dave.
Come on, Dave.
Dave raves.
All right, so a little twist on Dave raves. We're going to put our own twist on it and give our match of the week and performer of the week. I'll let you start, Chad. What was your match of the week?
Match of the week. Are we going by the weekend? Right? Like all the
It could be Dynamite and stuff if you thought something on Dynamite was better.
I mean, as much as the finish is very contentious right now for a lot of people, gotta go Roman Cody, man. That was a great, was it a blow by blow great match? Like, as far as, was it Kenny Omega Vikingo as far as just bell to bell? Moveset wise, no. But as far as just a good old fashioned storytelling match, I gotta go Roman Cody, man.
So I agree with you with that match, but I'm going to go with the Usos versus Sami and KO for the things I said earlier. Thought it was a main event. I love to see the tag titles presented in a big way. So one of my favorite Mania matches ever. And I know it's recency, but I love it.
Yeah.
So performer of the week, mine happens to be Speedball Mike Bailey for the weekend he had. I love, obviously, the big stars came out to play for WrestleMania and they felt larger than life, but I want to shine some light on Speedball Mike Bailey, who I thought delivered in big spots, taking on the guy, legends of the game, being able to be involved GCW and Impact and be able to continue to put his name out there. I thought he had a great weekend.
That's a great pick, man. I didn't even see your performer of the week. I didn't scan the notes. So when I was talking him up earlier, I didn't even know this was coming, but yeah, you hit the nail on the head right there. I went a little different. Maybe it's a favorite pick. Maybe it's a pick a lot of people would have. But I got to go Rhea Ripley, man. I think in a spot where she's kind of getting that push, she's getting that torch passed to her from one of the best. I think she stood up, she stood out, and she crushed it in that match. One of my favorite matches of the week was Rhea and Charlotte.
So just the other thing from Dave Meltzer's newsletter, he did talk about a lot of things, previewing WrestleMania, potentially the sale for WWE. But he talked about Tony Khan making a subtle dig at Eric Bischoff when talking about AEW pay-per-views business, saying that this has been the most successful startup company in pro wrestling of this era, speaking about AEW, and the most competitive with WWE in more than 20 years. He also noted that the one company that was competitive and beat WWF for 83 weeks was 1 year later doing lower pay-per-view numbers than AEW does now. Obviously, different landscape, but just love the verbal barbs between Eric Bischoff and Tony Khan.
They
Absolutely
hate
love
each
it.
other, and I
love
it.
it.
I
It's
love
amazing.
it.
Bischoff was on AW programming once, right? In the early years?
He's been on
twice.
there at least twice, maybe 3 times. The dude was on there a lot, and I love that now they hate each other.
They're playing for the same team though, man. It's Turner, bro. Come on.
I know, man. Like, bring Bischoff in as a manager and as a super heel. I feel like there's money to be made.
I do like Eric Bischoff. I'm a big fan, but
I like Bischoff too.
All right, let's get into the week ahead and preview what we have. That's going to be a little bit lighter than this week.
It's a light week.
The week ahead.
All right, on the WWE side of things, we obviously have the Fallout. The Raw after WrestleMania is tonight. SmackDown, same thing. Who knows who's going to be there? What are they going to set up for Backlash in Puerto Rico? AEW Dynamite 4/5/23. Main match, FTR versus the Guns for the tag titles. If FTR loses, they have to leave AEW.
Question real quick. Last Wrestling Tonight episode we did.
Yes.
We both went on the record. You were on the record saying FTR is going to WWE. I was on the record they are staying. Where do you stand this week, Ace?
Standing by my guns here. I'm going to say they're going to WWE. I'm saying it.
I respect that.
It feels a little.
I don't agree with that, but I respect that.
I'm going to be honest with you. It feels a little bit worky to me that they're doing this. It doesn't feel right that they would lose to the Guns and then leave the territory altogether. But my idea is that they saw the way tag team championship wrestling was presented on a big stage main eventing.
I thought the same thing, but those boys signed contracts months ago.
But you know what? Just for the sake of discourse, I will stick to my guns.
I'll say, like, not to draw a big conversation out because we're 3 hours in, our longest Wrestling Tonight ever because it's WrestleMania week, and why the fuck not? But FTR Guns, I think FTR are the people that jumped the Bucks. I'm going to throw that out there. That's my theory.
I like it because it's the payoff of like that Punk story, but a different edge of it. You know, like the FTR Bucks stuff. We didn't get that third match between the two of them. I think,
and if they work shit out with Punk, you could always bring him in. So it's like, why not get that storyline?
So later in the week, we have NWA 312 from Chicago. We have Chris Adonis versus Tyrus for the world title. We have the women's first ever TV champion being crowned. And then we have La Negra Rosas versus Camille for the NWA Women's Championship. But we also have MLW War Chamber, which is happening, I believe, this Thursday. The National Openweight Championship, John Hennigan, the defending champion against Jacob Fatu. Taya Valkyrie leaving the territory, probably dropping that featherweight championship to Delmi Exo. And we have another questionable match here. We have Real One Willie Mack, who just got his release from MLW, so I'm not sure where Willie Mack will be doing this card. Enzo.
And supposedly Enzo is disputing that he was ever under contract. He said he was working on a handshake deal, and that the fact that Court Bauer came out and quote unquote fired him was a power move that he could have left any time. So
yeah,
MLW loves that backstage drama more. Everybody says AEW has backstage drama. You're not paying attention to MLW because they have drama all the time.
And then they're going to sue WWE about it somehow.
Exactly. And real quick, just a quick shout out for NWA 312. Some good matches on there, but I just have an inkling. I have a guy you guys should kind of keep your eye on. He kind of hit with me lately, and I think he's a young guy signed to NWA that big future ahead for him. Check out Thrill Billy. This dude, he's a throwback to he's like the Freebirds back in the late 70s, early 80s, man. Check out Thrill Billy with NWA.
You had me at Freebird, so I'm definitely going to check it out. So that's all we got for you guys. I mean, this has been a great episode. You mentioned 3 hours, but I could have went 10 hours, man. There's so much to unpack. I thought we did the best job we could do. It was a great conversation.
We cut a lot of shit, guys. We cut a lot of shit for you guys. And Ace, I feel like if there's any episode of Wrestling Tonight within a calendar year that's going to run 3 hours, it has to be Mania weekend, right?
I agree. And I honestly think we'd be doing a disservice if we just got on here and told you the hour-long version of this. There was so much to talk about. I want to thank Colton for hopping on here and Anthony for dropping on last week to preview Mania. I felt more prepared going in, having our Raw down brethren.
Absolutely.
Sure this was a lot of fun.
This was a lot of fun. And honestly, we had probably a 3-hour show on dock regardless. And then we get WWE Cell dropped in our lap yesterday. So
yeah,
There was a lot to talk about. We had a lot of other quick hitters for you guys, but we had to kind of cut it short. Next week we'll return to form, and we won't drag you guys out with 3 hours. But hope you
guys
enjoyed it.
Come on, you all enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But so as far as on my end, make sure you guys stay tuned. We have Honor Side, as I mentioned, with Colton, who's on here early, did a beautiful job. 10:10 p.m. Thursday, covering Ring of Honor Weekly TV. And then this Friday, Shot Nostalgia, episode 10 of season 3, WWF 1998. We're covering 3 Raws as we do the go-home show before King of the Ring 1998. A lot of good stuff on doc. And we're moving right through. We're almost in the summer months of Shot Nostalgia. And thank you guys so much for the love. It's always a blast working with Mike Belcaster. Can't wait to hear about all his LA adventures that he had.
Yeah, Mike was at Mania. He was at Mattel. I'm sure tune into Fig Night on Tuesdays at 7. I'm sure he's going to have a lot to talk about. On my end, debates, Mondays, we drop on audio. Sundays at 7 p.m., we do a debate. We're going to have another good one. We're going to be talking Cody Rhodes. We're going to be talking The Cell. There's going to be some good debate questions this week. Also, the flagship, obviously, every Thursday, we break down AEW, All Elite Wrestling, Dynamite, all of that good stuff. And if you're a movie fan, go search Broken VCR on Apple and Spotify. Me and Hawk, the one and only Hawk, we talk movies every week. We pick a movie and we talk about it. But I think the big episode I just want to plug this week, since it's the fallout of Mania, go check out the Raw Down Boys, Thursdays, 8 p.m. J-Bone, Young Anthony, Marco. See who won the Raw Down title and hear what they had to say about WrestleMania.
I wasn't entered in the Raw Down Championship running. I'm a former Raw Down champion, but I was a Cody Rhodes win away from having a perfect card, by the way.
Shit.
I did the
you
extra
probably would have
cooler.
won that title.
I did the extra cooler thing, but shout out to them. Extra Cooler had a great table thing that he drew up, and that was great. And shout out to them for their sloop celebration for WrestleMania.
Yeah, they had a party. That looked
yeah.
like a lot of fun. I would have been there if I lived in the area.
Yeah, one of these days going to make it out there, hang out with those boys at Sloop because they're a blast. You know, Matt from Extra Cooler, I've hung out with a few times. Came out for Grand Slam, came out here for Fantasy Baseball, but I got to meet the other Extra Cooler boys.
Extra Cooler dudes, great guys, and Sloop. I'm jealous. I don't get Sloop in my area, and every time I see any of those guys drink it, it looks so fresh and so tasty and so crisp. Looks
I
like
got a
good
care
beer.
package from Matt, from Extra Cooler, and he gave me some. I just finished the last of it, but gave
What's
me
the one? Juice Bomb?
The Juice Bomb, yeah, and there's a Mosaic one as well, which is fantastic. Good stuff.
I got to get it. Matt, where you at, man? Send me a care package.
Yeah, he'll drive to see you. He's a trooper. What a man.
Matt is a trooper. Great guy.
All right, guys. Well, that's all we got for you. Chad, tell them how they should keep it, snug and stiff.
You got to keep it snug and stiff, guys, and join us next week. We'll have more wrestling news. We'll have all the quick hitters. And I think the fun thing with wrestling tonight is what's going to be the big 3 stories. Until next week, we'll see you guys then.
Reach for the sky, boy.